Yo, yo, yo! What's going on, everybody? What's up? Nine more days. 9 more days, boys. What's up, Chris? What's up, Dennis? Okay, we got a lot. Oh, what am I doing? Let me put this on super low. We'll be counting hours before we know it. Yeah. Okay, so 9 more days. 9 more days. 9 more days. 18 hours, 29 minutes. Okay, so there was a bunch of stuff today. Caught the end of try stream with the interview earlier, but decided to wait on yours. You know what? Yeah, we're gonna watch it. I literally are coming in hot. I finished work, then I had to dash off and do some shit, some IRL stuff. That's why I'm a little bit late. I finished work a little bit late. Anyway, Crimea River, as they say. Nobody cares. So I literally haven't seen much. I kind of did put on Twitch just to give Try, you know, I wanted to get, not that he needed it, but, you know, one more view is better than none, but he didn't need it. It looked like he was, the audience was there for him, so I'm happy for him. It looks good. He deserves it. He's been working his ass off. Like a lot of Path of Exile 2 content creators are, this is like crunch time right now. It's a little overwhelming, but he has that. Plus, he's got this, he had this crazy idea of doing this podcast with like 40 plus some odd creators, which I'm one of them. I'm super happy he reached out. Anyway, so he's got that plus all the other crap, man. Like, wow. X-rated. Long time. How you doing, man? How you doing? Welcome. Anyway, so we're gonna watch his interview with Jonathan Rogers, and there was another interview today with Legendary Drops. Yeah, another YouTuber. He had an interview with Jonathan Rogers. I think it was recorded. I'm not sure. I don't know how much we're going to get to that. We're going to watch all of Try's interview because that was actually live in today. So what do you think about Red posting that post? Oh, Rod. Rod. Very unprofessional. No class. Pathetic. Non-leadership quality. I can go on and on. I'm big on leadership. I was in business my career, my whole career, so I did a lot of reading up on, leadership characteristics. I read a lot of books on that topic, and just pathetic, to be honest with you. Pathetic is right. Yeah, damn, you could have yeah, exactly. That's what a leader would have done. Instead of getting defensive, and when you get defensive, you're wrong, right? He knows they're effed. But what he should have done, like a true leader, like how Grinding Gear Games did, they congratulated Blizzard when they launched Diablo 4. They wished them luck, all that kind of stuff, right? Sorry guys, there's a little bit of a feedback on my mic. because of some background noise, which I thought I eliminated, but obviously not. Yeah, so he should have just said, congratulations, guys. Wow, what a reveal. You know, good luck. Thank you for advancing the ARPG genre. You know, we look forward to, you know, making Diablo just as good or something like, you know, of course they're not going to admit that their game's worse or better or whatever, right? Well, no, they would say it's better. Well, his, you know, he did take credit for the genre. My only other comment on that is Diablo. Nobody's copying Diablo 4. Nobody's copying Diablo 3. It's Diablo 2. I've said this a million times. Diablo 2 is what is the GOAT. What established ARPGs. What people wanted to copy. Diablo 2. And he was nowhere near Diablo 2. Nobody right now at Blizzard had anything to do with Diablo 2. We're finally getting out of the Blizzard era. Yeah, I believe that too. That's a good point, Chris. I think this finally put them in their place. It's sad to say, but the optimist in me, before we get into what I really want to, you know, before we get into the future of ARPGs, Path of Exile 2, which it's going to be, people are going to be, you know, I know there's this thing going on. We should say it's Exile-like, and I totally agree. ARPGs are gonna want to be like Path of Exile 2, so Exile-like. The only other thing about Rod's pathetic tweet is I'm hoping, please, God, if there is a God, please, I hope this is rock bottom for them, and internally they do whatever it needs to be done in order to do a 360 and fix that studio, because they are producing crap over crap over crap over crap. So they got to stop the bleeding, and they got to put people in there that know what they're doing and make that studio good, and the games, because you can say what you want. This isn't about D4 bad. There's nothing more I would love to be doing right now is to be juggling multiple games of the same quality, of the Exile-like quality. I'm going to start using that, because that just gives me more content. So right now, instead of me stalling until December 6th, I could be playing another amazing ARPG right now. But that doesn't exist. There's only one. Make MMOs great again. Yeah. Well, you know, I guess whatchamacallit there, Intrepid Studios is trying that. We'll see, but that's years and years away. Anyway, at the end of the day, the raw tweet was pathetic. Hey, what's up, Jason? Exile 2 like. Yeah. So pathetic. Such a whiny, bitchy, sore loser tweet. That's sore loser. Yeah, sore loser. That's what I'm gonna say. Sore loser. Throne and Liberty's doing okay in New World. Yeah, but this is next level. This game behind me is next level, man. It's gonna be next level. Anyway, let's get to the tweet here. The tweet. There he is. Try. Hey, you know what? Try. If you ever watch this, like, I was a little bit. I think I waited 2 days before I bought the supporter pack, and I bought the biggest one. So I'm getting that shirt. I'm getting the t-shirt. I'm getting the book and everything else that comes with it. But like, Try has been Try got that shipment literally the next day. Like, how the F did he get it so quick? And I'm going outside to my front door. Are you there? UPS? FedEx? Sammy Caps, I'm at this house. Are you there? Try already got his literally the next day. Like so now it's like it's laughable. It's laughable. I'm literally checking my door because I'm like, well, shit, Try literally got it the next day. You haven't gotten yours either. Mage and Koba, welcome, man. How you doing, bro? Yeah. Anyway, I was just like, when I saw him with it, I'm like, fudge. Wow, that was quick. But he probably bought it right away. Whereas I was looking at everything and I started debating, okay, how am I going to do this? I know I'm getting the top one. Should I get a couple of more? You know, how am I going to do it? Because I want to do some giveaways. And then I noticed that it came with a bunch of keys. I'm like, yeah, but that's not enough. I want to give away more. I'm going to start giving away keys literally every...
Thanks for the follow.
Oof. JVG. Thank you for the follow. I'm going to start giving away keys every stream now. I don't know. Like, once I start, I can't stop, right? So I'm going to do it all the way up till probably even past December 6th. So I reached out to Grinding Gear Games with a suggestion on how I can do this. And I'm just waiting to hear back from them, but I haven't heard back from them. But I'm sure they're getting inundated with requests about stuff, you know, from content creators. So, yeah. Anyway, so my point is, with me thinking all the time, okay, should I get 1, 2, 3? How am I going to give away? Yada, yada, yada. Then I remembered, I'm like, oh my shit, I didn't even buy the pack yet. And I think that was the second day after the packs came out, I think. Anyway, it is what it is. Game keys for early act. Yeah, I'm going to be giving away keys. Actually, where is it? I posted this today, so if you want to enter, I'm giving away keys. So go on X, Sammy Caps. And all you have to do is follow me, like the tweet, and retweet, and you'll be in. What do they do? It'll give you access to Path of Exile 2's early access on December 6th. It'll give you access to the game. You will be able to play Path of Exile 2 on December 6th.
Oh, yep. Okay, that's better, Soshiro. Yep.
All right, let me turn off the music.
Yep. There. Okay, please communicate with me in that sheet, you guys. That'd be so much better than Discord.
Yeah, that's right.
I just gave you edit access.
That's right, X-rated.
Please communicate with me in the sheet. Thank you. Okay, cool. I don't even need the laptop then. Laptop's done. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm going to message GGG and see if they're on time or if they canceled the interview and I just didn't see the message. And wouldn't that be mighty unfortunate?
That would be unfortunate. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, X-rated. So you would get the key and you would be able to play Path of Exile 2. You wouldn't have to buy the key. So go on X if you want to do it. Well, I would do it multiple ways. Go on X, find Sammy Caps, find that tweet, this tweet here, and just follow me, like the tweet, retweet it, and you'll be entered in for a chance to win. And just make sure you're here every night. I'm going to start doing giveaways. We're going to be giving keys away. Sammy the Key Master. Yeah. Oh man, you guys with the names. Odina Ferrado. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah. Jahani. POE like. No, Exile like. Exile like. Oh, what am I waiting for?
Jonathan Rogers.
Here we go.
Question number 2. Do you
Whoa.
hear? Okay. Exiles, do you see Jonathan Rogers? Question number 2. Do you hear Jonathan Rogers? Jonathan, can you do a sound check, please?
Nope.
We're in the new studio today.
Oh.
So, that's pretty nice. Very nice little area that I'm sitting in here.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Is he a good audio level, everyone? Or a little louder?
It sucks. Try. Turn it up.
We were good.
Okay. Perfect levels, Jonathan.
Nice.
Okay, man. Like I said a second ago, you are 9 days out from Path of Exile 2 launching, and everyone I'm talking to is excited. It doesn't matter if they've been playing Path of Exile 1 for years. It doesn't matter if they literally haven't played video games ever. I show them just the snippet from the trailer, and they are ready to log in on December 6th. So my first question, what's the secret sauce? How are you guys doing this? How is Grinding Your Games making non-gamers ready to log into a hardcore ARPG?
I think we just have when we're presenting our content, we always do it in a way where we're thinking about, how are people going to react to it? We just, and the other thing as well is that we're not afraid to put information in our videos. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of like, hey, tone it back a little bit, people don't need so much information, this kind of stuff. But personally, I'm kind of a fan of just let's just put everything out there. And if you do that, I think people get excited. So, I guess that's my philosophy about it anyway. And I think people do resonate with that. If you show them just, show them what you got cooking, and show them gameplay, show them, how they're able to use all the tools you give them, and I think they'll be excited.
Definitely. And
you know what their secret sauce is? Outside of making like amazing games. So they're gamers themselves, but their secret sauce is they're just like you and me. They come off like that. They're genuine. They're not being grandiose about everything they do. They don't do a dog and pony show. They're not about the lights and the shine. They're about, they're about what's in the middle, like what's important. And they talk like regular people, like regular gamers, like they're gamers. That's their secret sauce, because when you combine that with the fact that they know how to make a game, people they're salivating. And tries right. And I may do a video on this. This December 6th is going to be probably one of the greatest ARPG launches in a very, very long time. I think December 6th is going to be nuclear. I really do. And for many reasons, and I don't know. I'm still kind of formulating an idea that I want to do for a video. But this is why people are salivating, is because they're gamers, they know how to make a game, and they're honest and transparent. And a lot of people resonate with that. They don't have strings attached, and they play their games. Yeah.
I hate to bring it up,
Corban.
but it wasn't an interview that dropped today with Legendary Drops. How just during the Settlers of Kalgur reveal, you all pivoted to focus entirely on Endgame. How is your company that agile? Because I work at a company of about 70 people.
Right.
We are not agile at all. What are your processes like internally as developers? Like, how can you move on a dime and just go in?
I mean, I guess it's just about not being afraid to do it, right? I mean, certainly it causes some consternation, right? I mean, nobody likes being jerked around from one task to the other, that kind of thing. But I think it is important because it just gives us the ability to really make sure we're reacting to what we think is important. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what to say really. I mean, just like, we just have to make those kinds of decisions and just tell people, this is really what we have to do. Like when you realize that you're not doing the right thing, you really have to jump on, you can't just sort of say, oh, well, we're just keep going to doing the wrong thing just because there's so much inertia, right? Like you have to actually try to turn the ship around. And so, yeah, that's what we did.
Awesome. All right, Jonathan, I have the interview broken down into various different categories here. I wanted to start with questions about new players in particular and just people logging into the game, playing it for the first time and their experiences. So I wanted to start with
Chris,
the fact that in Path of Exile 1, it's
a new
renowned
age
for not many people making it even to Brutus. I mean, I know it's a free-to-play game. A lot of people try it out, but even when it was paid, I'm sure a lot of people bounced early on. So I'm curious, first 5 minutes of Path of Exile 2, do you think that onboarding experience is solid and you're going to really wrap people in and get them progressing further into the game?
I'm pretty sure it is. And I think that, like, if you're talking about literally the first 5 minutes, then I think that what will really just get you in is the fact that just the feeling of combat is much better. And that's really the thing you're going to appreciate from the first moment that you start playing. The other thing as well is we have a lot of, not necessarily, I mean, in the first 5 minutes, you're going to come upon your first boss, right? And that will be a much more engaging experience than Hillock was, you know what I mean? Like the first boss is significantly better. But even just after that, right? Even the first 15 minutes, there's like other bosses really close. You're sort of getting into that experience of having the more interesting combat and more interesting things going on just sort of right away. And it's funny, I had a friend over at my place who was playing the game the other day.
it must be nice.
It was really interesting that he used for this. He's like, oh, you're so generous with the content. And I was kind of like, it's kind of an interesting way to look at it, is like, he's kind of like, you're giving people what they want so quickly. It's kind of like, I find that's a kind of an interesting way to look at it. But, yeah, I mean, basically we just want people to have a good time. And, even in the from the very beginning, like before we even made Path of Exile 1, like when we founded the company, one of the things that I had as my metric is like, what's the time to first zombie? You know what I mean? Like, when's the first moment you can actually kill something? Like you just kill like a basic enemy. And I kind of want to make that sure that that's as minimal as possible. And that's why we kind of make sure that we start the game the way we do, with like action immediately and that kind of stuff. So, that's kind of just a philosophy we've always had.
Definitely. Getting people right into the action is important. And lots of people, especially viewers of my channel, are completely new Path of Exile players. They've never played an ARPG. They never played Path of Exile 1. And they are wondering, in Jonathan's eyes, what is the busted build? What is the archetype they should log in and play on December 6th?
He's not going to answer
They want to
that.
get into the action fast. I'm not going to use you for clickbait videos, Jonathan. I'm just wondering, from your view, I know you said people really like the monk that had a high satisfaction score, but is it the most powerful?
Not necessarily. I mean, I honestly don't know that I should be recommending builds particularly. I mean, I've said a few times, I think the mercenary could be a very good new player-friendly class, both because you're further away from the action and just because of that like instant response of everything. Like, if you're going to pick something like the warrior or something like that, you're going to have to worry about the fact that you have to commit to attacks and this kind of stuff. Whereas with something like the mercenary, because it's so fast from the point where you
it's
attack
ranged.
and the point you recover, and also because you're further back, I think that could be a very good choice for new players. But honestly, like any class can work. Like any class can be the one that you work. And look, the main reason why we have classes in the first place, like, because I mean, we could be a game that just has like zero, introductory stuff. Like we already let you choose between and mix and match all the different skills and weapons and things like that. So the reason why we have classes at all is because people really want like a stereotype to latch onto when they start the game, to think about like, okay, how am I going to build my character, right? So you show them some things like, like here's a ranger and here's a sorceress and so on. And then when they see that, they immediately get an idea in their head about what kind of thing it is that they might want to do. So I think that when it comes to that, like you're best off just picking like what excites you, right? Like what is the thing that just makes you feel like, oh yeah, I could see how I'm going to play this, right? And so you do that, and then I think you'll have a good time.
I baited you into that answer.
Yeah, guys, like for those of you that are here, like I'm going to continue to say this until December 6th. Just follow your heart. Look at the different play styles. Look at the ones that are play styles you like, and then just go with it and enjoy your first playthrough. I personally would suggest not rushing it. Enjoy it. You're only going to be able to play this for the first time once. So everything is going to be new to all of us unless you participated in a closed beta. So enjoy it. And there's no wrong class. And at the end of the day, really, it's just the starting class. You can change it after, but my point is, don't get so. I know, like I'm kind of memeing here. People ask me every night, "Have I chosen my class yet for December 6th?" And in all honesty, I am 95% sure of what I'm playing, but I'm not going to reveal it. But that's just for content purposes. I don't want to reveal it. I'm going to reveal it the night before. So just pick a class and enjoy it. It's only one time you're going to get a first playthrough. There's no wrong answer. Like, eventually, for those of us that are going to be around and play this game forever, you're going to get through all the classes.
That's exactly what we wanted to hear, man. Whatever you're going to have.
You're going to play Warrior?
And I'm
Hellspawn?
curious on
Nice.
character selection. I know it was talked
Warrior
about in
looks
the past
good.
that ascendancies might appear on that
Chris.
screen. Are they still not there, and you find out about them in the trials?
Yeah, they're still not there. Look, that screen is certainly something that needs some UI attention. We just haven't had time to work on it more. There's so many things I would still improve even now. But I mean, look, that's what the early access is for, right? There's going to be tons of time to improve on that stuff. But yeah, for the beginning, it's just like, pick what you think sounds like it would be cool, right? And we do have a few like little videos of skills and things like that on that screen, which like show, and like it kind of gives like, so it gives kind of 3 main points for each class of like, here's the kind of things you can expect from that class. And there's a little video for each one as well. So we've got a little bit of information there, but we don't have like, full-on ascendancy classes and everything there. I think there's room for that sort of stuff, but not at the moment.
Yeah, Jason, the skills are mixable. You can mix whatever you want skill wise.
Okay, awesome. Now I want to move on to testing and what new players, completely new players to ARPGs, found the most challenging in Path of Exile 2. I've heard that Path of Exile 1 players were just shocked by the difficulty of the combat and
right.
And newer players were kind of fine with it. What did they find challenging, though? Because I know you did a lot of first
you never
user
played
testing,
POE1?
and I found that very interesting because you're going to get a lot of first users on December 6th. What did they find hard?
So definitely the things they were finding the most challenging was the character customization and itemization stuff, right? Like that's where they're kind of, potentially finding that they, so, I mean, we asked quite a lot of questions about like, what do you feel like you're skilled at and that kind of stuff? Like, try to sort of get a gauge for like, how people rate their own skills in different areas. And it was certainly like understanding itemization that was the part that people found the hardest. So we've actually done quite a few things to improve in that area, I think, since then. I mean, like, it's just kind of subtle stuff, but just over time, we've just been, carefully massaging towards a situation where, it's easier to find the stuff that you need to find. It's, there's more help, there's more guidance. There's also things like, the socketing system being, I think, a lot easier than the crafting bench system that we had and things like that. So there's things like that, I think, that will help a lot. So that's kind of the stuff that I think new players find the hardest. And then I think that's really just because, I mean, like there's a lot of stats, there's a lot of things kind of coming at you, we just have to make sure that we're not overwhelming you too much with that stuff. And of course, there's the giant passive tree, which always gives people a bit of a scare. That's really the stuff that I would say that new players find the hardest.
Okay, well, awesome. Now, during the beta,
I just want to mention, like, Jason, you never played POE1. There's a lot of people in my community that have played Path of Exile, but there's also a lot of new people that haven't. But one of the priorities, and I don't want to speak for Jonathan, but I get the sense that one of the priorities, and sorry for the feedback, guys, but there's some sound going on in the background that I can't stop. But my setup should be eliminating it. But anyway, they are really making an effort in Path of Exile 2 to make it very new player friendly. And you're going to see that there's a lot of things that made Path of Exile barrier of entry very high and not new player friendly. And it's one of the reasons why I believe they made this game, is because they knew Path of Exile 1 was capped. They weren't going to grow more on the player base. They had to open it up, make it more user friendly. And Path of Exile does it in subtle ways in every aspect of the game. And I just think this is why I think December 6th is going to be such a massive, massive flood of new players because the barrier of entry has been greatly reduced. That's my take, that's my opinion, and they've still kept the complexity of what makes a Path of Exile game Exile-like. I'm going to start using that all the time. So super, super excited for that and for new players.
Because I know that there were a few closed beta tests. People were freaking out when they first got those NDA invites and everything. Between those tests, what were the largest changes, and did you really change a lot about the game
I'll
after
minister.
the tests themselves? Because I know, like, when we went to LA, you took a ton of feedback and made a huge number of changes just between March and June.
Hey, Buff
Did
Sherry.
that happen again with all the beta tests this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it really comes down to difficulty, but the thing with difficulty is that people know the game is too hard, but they don't know why it's too hard, and the reasons can be hugely varied between like, oh, it's just this one boss ability to like, oh, you know, the entire way you're scaling spell damage is incorrect, or you know, random stuff like that. So there's all sorts of things, and it's always just, you know, can we tease out what exactly it is that people are running into that's the most, you know, that's the reason for the thing they're finding hard. So I think there was a variety of changes. So one of them was like, you know, the map change where, you know, you can see what's out there so you know what to find. A lot of it was down to, you know, more specific item drops around the place. Then there were things like the flask change. So the flask change was pretty big, I think, because that one really was like people dying to because they were fumbling their flasks. But it took quite a while to identify that was like an issue. Like we knew that we kind of knew that we weren't happy with flasks, but I don't think I'd really appreciated the degree to which a new player really did struggle with them. So that's another one of those things. But I mean, look, it's all over the place, and it's like the devil's in the details, really, because even something like just the exact specifics of the passive tree, even for a new player, even if they're not like going deep on it, like it can actually be worse for new players because a new player will pick something that's weak without realizing it, and so you need to make sure that everything on there is reasonable. So there's quite a lot, sort of like as I said, it really all comes down to those details that make sure that the game is feeling right. And I think that without doing a lot of those tests, it would have been very hard to appreciate some of those problems because you just don't, you know, when you're playing yourself, there's actually like a tendency where you'll always pick the stuff you kind of know is good subconsciously. So I actually have like a thing when I'm playing now where often I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick what I want and then I'm going to do the opposite of that. Like in order to kind of force myself down the kind of like the not golden path of like, what if you were the what if I picked the worst choice every time for like, what, you know, like how can I make sure that that's like not too terrible? That's kind of another thing you kind of have to make sure that you're doing as well.
Like what Jonathan, like just to give you an idea of how brilliant even the testing that they did. Apparently, when they did these closed betas, they did like niche betas, right? So, for example, they did testing with people that never played Path of Exile. They did a closed beta with people that played Path of Exile. You know, I heard that they even did console only, you know, that kind of stuff, right? People that had played a long time Path of Exile, people that barely played Path of Exile, because they really wanted to get all these different takes. And it's just amazing, just the detail that they went to, even in the closed beta. But you guys are going to witness firsthand how Path of Exile 2, the barrier of entry, I keep harping on this, but I'm harping on it because people that are in here watching my content, I want them to understand probably 8 out of 10 people that wanted to play Path of Exile, and I was one of them, didn't play it because of all of the rhetoric that was associated with it. Too hard to play. You need you need to play 10,000 hours to understand. That's true though. You do need that many hours to truly understand Path of Exile. You need 100 spreadsheets. It's for hardcore players. It's not for casual players. It takes forever to learn. You need to go to like 20 third-party websites. All true, by the way. But it kept me away, and it keeps the majority of players away because they hear that and they're like, nah, I'm not touching that. So I think, you know, Grinding Gear Games, with everything that they've demonstrated with Path of Exile 2, showing all these ways that the game is going to teach you in-game, not going to a third-party website. In-game, they're going to not hold your hand, but they're going to inform you. This way, you're better educated in the game and understanding the game which helps you progress in the game. They're just sprinkled without, like, all over the place. It's on the passive tree, it's on how we craft, the ease of crafting, like all these things. And they've removed some of the difficult stuff, like having sockets on gear and having to color coordinate the skills to those colors. It was a effing nightmare. Now you don't have to worry about a 6-link. Do you know how hard it was for a new player to learn or understand how to get a 6-link item? That is gone. So they've done all these things just to make it so much better for a new player into Path of Exile 2. They really have, and I'm hoping they reap the benefit of that, and I know they are. I truly believe that. And the flask system, that too. If I wanted to be a god who walks in a room, 60 flashes of color and vomit. Yeah. Because it felt like a Diablo clone trying to survive, but because I did not keep up with it, I did not see how the game evolved into a masterpiece. Yeah, so I resisted Path of Exile for so many years, and the same reasoning. No, man, I don't have the time for this. You know what? I missed the boat. Like, the game's over 10 years, like 10 years old, whatever it was at the time. I missed the boat. There's no way I'm going to catch up. I'm a content creator. I'm a streamer. I'm going to look like an idiot. But Crucible League came out 3.21, and I said, again, I was in between games, and I'm like, oh, fuck Path of Exile. They're dropping a new league in a week. Should I? And I started having the doubts, and I said, you know what? Fuck it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to try it. I'm going to hate it, and that's it. It's free to play. It doesn't cost me anything. And I played Crucible League, and I liked it. Yeah, it was complicated. Yeah. I didn't learn. Basically, I took the approach, every league, I'm going to learn a little bit, and that's what I'm going to learn, and I'll be behind. And I am behind. Like, when I play Path of Exile, I don't know half the shit, but I enjoyed the shit out of the game. So I'm glad I took that leap of faith, because it got to the point, especially Settlers of Kalgor, like, I'm addicted to it. Like, I don't know how many characters I made.
Definitely. I have 2 follow-ups from that question.
Yeah.
First,
yeah,
and
Chris.
I don't want you to commit to a release cadence. Or
Anyway,
anything,
sorry, guys.
But once we go into early access, do you see the team making large balance changes pretty quickly? Kind of like Path of Exile 1. I'm notorious for going into the freaking ancient history of POE1 and seeing that when it first released, weekly updates, going in, making huge balance changes, wild swings back and forth, passive tree resets every 11 days and the like. Do you see that happening with early access, given how much larger scale it seems it's going to be? Or is it going to be more stretched out, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months?
Well, so I think that there's going to be a couple of different things depending on what type of thing we're talking about here. So for balance changes, I have absolutely no doubt that in that first week, we're going to be just doing a storm of crazy things, just because there'll be, look, there's going to be cases where people just haven't tested bosses with certain builds and things like that, right? Especially in the end game, which has had, less testing obviously than the start of the game. So there's going to just be things where it's someone will be like, oh, this boss is just impossible with minions. And someone probably did test it with minions at some point to make sure the AI is good, but there probably wasn't a really, is this actually easy enough? That kind of stuff. You'll get changes
I agree,
that. I'm sure
Elminster.
there'll just be cases where, we need to make those kinds of changes. So and the other thing that's going to be, I'm sure, is just lots of someone finds something that's just not just busted in a normal way things are allowed to be busted, but busted in a completely ridiculous way that just can't be allowed to stand. I'm sure that will happen, and so long as we can fix that stuff fast enough, I think that we may have to do a few things like that. But ideally we don't. But we'll see how that goes.
Guys, don't be. Well, I'm not gonna say don't be fooled, because they're not trying to fool you. But Grinding Gear Games has no problem doing whatever they need to do to weed out stuff that's broken in the game. So expect, if there is stuff that's broken, or the majority of the player base is complaining about something that's broken or not working, Grinding Gear Games is going to step in and fix it. They are not shy. When it comes to their game, they do whatever it takes to get it right. So I'm going to suspect that during early access, the first month, 2 months, whatever, right? It's not going to be shorter than 6 months. Jonathan already said He doesn't foresee it being any shorter than 6 months. So you bet. I'm also going to say there's probably going to be 1 or 2 server resets where they completely wipe everything and restart everything because of whatever they needed to do. That's also a potential. So they're going to do what they need to do to keep the game where they want it to be. And they will not hesitate to jump in and fix it. They're very quick. They're adverse to risk. They don't care. They want the game right. And you know what? If some people are going to yell at them and complain, so be it, you know? I'll gladly re-roll too. Yeah. Even rollbacks if duping rears its ugly head. Yeah, they're not scared. They want to protect the integrity of the game, and if people are reporting bugs and major problems, they're going to jump in and fix it. Oh well, some people are going to get pissed off because they're they're already in cruel difficulty, and they almost reached the end game. Well, oh well, sorry, Sammy, back to the starting line. You know what I mean? They're not going to crumble to the audience, if you know what I mean. The integrity of the game is more important, and it should be. The integrity of the game is always number one. POE2 is going to be a long-awaited project that has been long overdue. Us boomers need this. Back to the days where a company put the game first. Yep. What did D4 should have done? They listened too much. Yes, exactly, Mr. Cove. But Diablo 4 has 2 problems. I don't necessarily consider listening too much a problem, although you're right, Mr. Cove. But when you are listening too much and it's accompanied with you don't know what the fuck you're doing, then that's where you get the Diablo 4 thing. And sorry for being direct, but they don't know what they're doing. And when you don't know so it's like when you're in a car, okay? When you're in a car and you're lost and you have your buddies with you and you're like, fuck, did I have to go left or right? Like, you don't know where you're going. You're completely lost. You have no idea. One guy's saying go left, one guy's saying go right, the other guy's telling you to go straight, you moron. So you're just roaming around aimlessly because you have no idea whether it's north, west, or east. And so that is where Diablo 4 is. They're listening, and they also don't know where the fuck they're going. Because if you knew where you were going, like if I knew in that scenario, I knew it was north straight, and the guy telling me to turn left, I'd be like, shut up, that's wrong. I know for sure I'm not going in that direction. You know what I mean? You can take that and apply it to game design and, all that other kind of stuff in a very simplistic way. I understand game development is much more complicated. I think the D4, the massive layoffs hurt the development teams. Buff Sherry, I respect your opinion, but they're 8,000 strong after the layoff. 8,000 strong. I don't buy that. Sorry. That's BS. I don't buy, all of them are new. Most of them, it was their first ARPG live service game. You want to know something? That scenario exists in Grinding Gear games. There are a lot of devs in the Grinding Gear game studio that Path of Exile 2 is their first ever game, live service ARPG. Very first one. So I understand what you're saying, and to some degree it may have influenced, but no, sorry, that's a cop-out. That's giving them a pass, and I don't buy it. At least GGG can say early access as they're making changes. Yeah. It comes down to leadership. Correct. Okay.
So I'm sure on the first week there'll just be lots of that stuff. But if you're talking about like larger content inclusions, like if we're talking about like new classes and like more sort of content type things, I suspect that we'll probably batch those up into like a larger cycle. Probably like, I mean, we were thinking like 2 months. It might end up being 3. Like I'm not entirely certain, but we'll kind of like work that out when we go there. the funny thing is like, so like months ago we had plans for what we wanted to do immediately after release, but as you get closer to release, like everything just falls apart, and you kind of have to be like, okay, after release we'll just have to take stock and see where we are, because like no contact survives. Sorry, no plan survives contact with the enemy, as they say. So we have to. We'll just have to sort of reassess and see what's going on at that point. But effectively, yeah, we'll probably do larger updates, just because I think. In order to actually get good testing for something, you have to get enough players back to actually test it substantially. And people certainly are much more willing to come back for a larger update than they are for a smaller one. So I think that's kind of important. We actually noticed in POE1 when we were doing the weekly updates that we didn't really see like a lot of people come back for them. Like the people who were playing were really happy, but the people who weren't playing kind of weren't. It wasn't rising to the level of them actually coming back. So I think it's better to make sure that if you've got a new update for even an early access, you want to make sure there's enough to kind of sustain it. But of course, that doesn't mean that we're not going to fix all the like random small issues that like anything that doesn't like that wouldn't be an attractive thing for someone to come back for. You might as well just put it in immediately, because like that's just that like bug fixes and just little balance changes, because it's not like a big deal anyway. So you might as well just throw it in there.
Definitely. Now, I have to ask, because I have been yearning ever since I saw it at ExileCon 2023. The Druid, the bear form.
Yeah.
Is that the reasons the Druid is delayed? Because it's got crazy animation problems with WASD, or is it just the final bit of polish on the third form?
No, it's not that. It's just literally that we had to pick something. We had to pick when we were slimming down for early access a little bit, because as I said, we're going to have 8. When we're slimming down, we're like, look, unfortunately, the Druid is going to have to be on the chopping block for now. It was really sad, but we just had to pick our battles. And I have no doubt that that'll be one of the next ones that comes out. And the reason ultimately is that making a new form for the Druid just is a lot of work. One of the forms wasn't done. We looked at the amount of work it would take to get the Druid over the line, and we're just like, look, if we can not have that, especially because when it comes to the stuff, it's like if you're talking about adding like a new animal form, that's like work that could go into like making a new boss fight or something like that. Because it's the same kind of like, it's the animation team. Ultimately, you have to do like a bunch of work to do that stuff. Rigging or just all that stuff has to happen. So it isn't just the sort of skills pipeline, as we might call it, that has to be worrying with that. It's also the the kind of the animation team who work on that stuff. So when we look at that, it's just like, look, if we cut this, it's going to add more content elsewhere, versus if we cut this other class where it wouldn't really so much. So that's kind of how those decisions get made.
My take on them only having 6 classes, and I hate to use the word only before that. I don't know. Let's put ourselves in their shoes. I kind of like the fact that it's only 6 out of the 12. It sounds like another 2 are coming in early access. We got confirmation of that. The Druid and the Huntress are the next 2. Over the weekend, Jonathan confirmed that the Huntress and the Druid are next in early access. So I kind of like that. Why would you put everything on the table right away in early access? During early access, it's going to be nice that they're going to be adding content. Like, they're doubling the size of early access. So what we're going to see on December 6th is going to double over the life of early access, the content. So I think it's nice that they have a couple of classes during early access that are going to add. They're going to add. So, it'll add that extra. Oh wow, okay, the Druid and Huntress are coming next week. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good way of doing it, instead of just dumping it here, guys, play the game. You know what I mean? They have good control over the flow. Yeah.
Now I have 2 very quick ascendancy questions for you, and then we'll move into classes themselves. First, last time we spoke, when we spoke in March, I tried to get some ascendancy details out of you, and you said you were working on a broken sorceress ascendancy. You didn't know if it was going to make it into the game. Did it make it into the game, or are we not seeing
so that was the chronomancer, the like time stop and everything. Like, I just I mean, the moment you tell people you can, like, the moment we're like, oh, we want to be able to stop time, it's like immediately, that's how do you make
Powerful.
that not OP? It was absolutely that. It's very fun to use. It's
Exactly,
really
Elminister.
Awesome.
I totally agree.
It's the game. And then the other ascendancy question: can you change ascendancies in POE2?
So you actually can't right now. I actually I think I did another interview recently where I thought that we could, but I believe that you can't at the moment. There's probably more discussion to have about that. I do know that certainly some designers are very keen to be that a locked choice. So we'll talk about that more. We'll see how that goes. But at the moment you can't, and so that'll be how it goes into early access anyway.
Okay, so for the foreseeable future, once you pick an ascendancy,
not necessarily. We'll as I said, we'll talk about this more. But
Okay.
yeah. But in the moment, at least, you can't change them.
Okay, sounds great. Now, classes, just broad questions about the classes from me. So you've talked about the monk having the highest satisfaction.
So, translation. This is how I interpret that exchange. Can you change ascendancies? Right now, no. A lot of our devs want it to be locked, so you can't change it. So going into early access, you can't change ascendancy. Okay, so in the foreseeable future, and he literally kind of just gave them the shut up kind of thing comment in a very polite way. So the way I interpret that, and this is my opinion, is we're going to wait to see what kind of feedback we get about that. If a lot of people start complaining about it, I bet we're going to be able to change ascendancies later on. It's something that they'll change. Again, my take could be completely wrong, but that's how I interpreted that interaction and the way Jonathan responded.
Satisfaction score for everyone who's tested. Which class has the lowest satisfaction score, and what are you doing to perhaps bring it up, if anything?
So the one thing to say is that the difference between these is not like super high, but the lowest one on that survey that we were referring to was actually the sorceress, funnily enough.
Really?
And I think that the reason for it is just because in the skill set, there's not like quite as much combo stuff as what some of the other classes have, and so we actually, after that point, we did work a bit on that and try to sort of improve, make a few more of those things sort of work together a little bit. But I think there's a little bit more work to do. I think that what I've heard some people say about the sorceress is it's a little bit more in the POE1 direction of like there's less kind of like less cross element combinations than what some of the other classes have. So therefore, like if you do pick that class, like there will probably be more situations where it's like there's less, like you're probably going to use less skills overall than other classes, or rather, it's not so much that you will use that, but like you won't be forced into as much using more variety. So I think that's something we can still improve by just adding more synergies between the elements. But that's at least my understanding of probably why I think that's the case. But as I said, we've already made some changes since the point when we did that survey. So I think that it already is, like somewhat improved already by that. But yeah, that was the thing. But I mean, as I said, we're talking like, 0.1 of a, like if you, out of 5 stars, it's like 0.1 of a star lower than the others. And like when you sort of dig into it, it's like, yeah. But I mean, as I said, I think that's at least my reason for, for why I think the sorcerer was like that. But yeah, that's kind of, I mean, as I said, we can always improve that. And I think we have been as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Just wanted to hear. I thought it would be a curious question.
Yeah.
Now, this one, I don't know if you can answer it or not, but everyone knows there's a monk in Path of Exile too. Monks use quarterstaffs. Monks use their fists a little bit with finishers and, mobility skills. Are there any unarmed combat support options? Is the default attack supportable with your fist? Can you make something busted with it? What is that a thing in POE2 right now? Or
so I believe that default attack is supportable. I'm like 99% certain of that, but I have to admit, I haven't actually seen that user interface myself because I haven't made an unarmed build. There is a plan for a bunch of unarmed build support, but it actually did get cut for early access for the time being. So unfortunately, I can say that face breakers will not make it in to early access, but we do have a plan for it. There is like a whole thing that's going to support that with other stuff. Now, one of the reasons for that actually is that it would require making unarmed versions of a ton of skills, like animations.
Of course.
There's actually it ended up being cut just for that reason alone. Like it was just a bunch of animation work that we ended up not having time for. And effectively, you're talking about a bunch of animation work that's just to support that one unique, because like that unique really is like kind of the key to being able to make unarmed damage like
Makes
actually
sense.
decent.
Tying it to uniques.
There were a couple of other things as well that were sort of intended for unarmed things, but yeah, we're not going to do it for now. But it'll come in the future. We'll get to the point where you can do that.
Okay. Is Facebreakers still a pair
That's
of
going to be
gloves
fun
in POE2?
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, this is a fun one just for you, Jonathan.
So I played a game called Destiny that they eventually ended up introducing some like martial arts style finishers, like combat, and the animations of those were unfreaking believable. So this is very, very interesting. Wow, very good. That man, I can't wait to see some of this stuff.
And what is your favorite skill to use in Path of Exile 2 right now? I know you're a mercenary fan. You're playing through as the mercenary right now. Is it on the merc or something else?
That is really tricky. Look, I mean, if we're talking about the
Yeah, it
merc,
does
then
sound
my
cool.
favorite thing is definitely the ice wall that shot us. What's it called? I can't remember even the name of it, but it's the one that fires a shot and then makes like 2 diagonal ice walls that come out, and then and then following up with the fragmentation rounds to explode them. Like I just love that combo. It just feels really satisfying to me. But you know, it's like obviously like every class there's interesting stuff. Like on the monk, it's probably the bell. Like I just love that bell. There's so many little things about its design, and it's just a fun skill. Like I love that kind of thing. So those are definitely up there for 2 of my favorites. But I mean, there's always new stuff. There's lots of cool things, right? That's just the kind of stuff that I like to do.
The bell is incredible, and you guys even snuck a showcase of it with a crossbow rapid shot
Yes,
into the.
yes.
Oh,
yes.
That was so good.
just to give a hint to the idea that there might be some pretty interesting ways that you can do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, free shatter
definitely.
combos are the
All
best.
right, rapid fire question here. Can we use the weapon swap system passive skills to allocate keystones, or can they only allocate notables and travel nodes?
So you can't do keystones, but I actually do have some interesting stuff to talk about with this because we were originally going to allow that, but then so the skill that actually originally was like that completely broke this, that we realized like this was going to be like not okay, was necromantic aegis, funnily enough. Which now, for anyone who doesn't, who hasn't played POE1, effectively what this does is it makes it so the stats from your shield are transferred onto your minions. But when you've got weapon swap involved, where like like if you can turn that on and off, it causes the specific details of this are kind of complicated, but it caused a lot of chaos in like how the stat system worked and like how the minions would have to work and like the snapshotting.
Don't go
of this,
down the
like,
rabbit
just a whole
hole,
lot of details
Jonathan.
around that were very complicated. And then at some point while we were discussing that, because we kind of were like, okay, how are we going to even implement this? It was like a whole thing. Then we're like, well, hang on, like, is it even okay for other keystones anyway? Like, when you really come right down to it, like, is chaos inoculation really okay if you can turn it on and off? Like, it's kind of supposed to be this like massive downside, and like if you can just like like it's kind of like we're kind of thinking maybe it wasn't okay, and then we sort of made the decision. You know what? Maybe keystones should actually be not swappable like that, just because of the type of. I think that might be a balance problem too far, even for us. Like even as far as we're willing to like accept a lot of these kinds of problems, like I think that might even be a bridge too far, even for us. So yeah, we decided not to allow it, and that's what we're going with for now, anyway.
Yeah, you knew people were already.
Ascendancy is like your character selecting like a certain style of play. In Path of Exile 2, it's going to give you more health. It's going to give you more armor. So it's just giving you more power. Buff Sherry.
Theory crafting ways to like get the perfect keystones on their side. Oh yeah.
So type of. I think that might be a balance problem too far, even for us. Like even as far as we're willing to like accept a lot of these kinds of problems, like I think that might even be a bridge too far, even for us. So yeah, we decided not to allow it, and that's what we're going with for now, anyway.
Yeah, you knew people were already theory crafting ways to like get the perfect keystones on their side. Oh yeah, definitely.
Right.
That's good. Another rapid fire, if you know off the top of your head, how many passive points are there in total? Because people are already looking at the tree and trying to path through it
sure.
now.
I believe it's 122 is the final count, and once you get all of the optional skill books and stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. Another rapid fire. This is a spicy one though. Are you able to do a 1-button respec if you have enough gold, or if you pay a premium, or is it one node at a time?
You will have to do one node at a time. And like the thing is, I mean, yeah, I guess I can see why people would want that. But generally speaking, that's not the kind of behavior we're really encouraging, right? Like we want you to actually be changing your build from one to the other. So yeah, there's just a one node at a time. I mean, look, it won't take you too long, right? You can click 100 times even if you're level 100. Like it's not too bad.
What do you mean by weapon swap, Minister? Like we're gonna have we're gonna have those skill specialization points that'll allow us to swap. For example, a sorceress will be able to swap between a cold and hot skill. What do you? So that's the swapping, right? Is there something else you're trying to get at? I'm not following.
I know it won't. I get it. I totally get it. Another one. So we've seen this key term overflow a few times, and some people are wondering how it works. Could you explain how it works?
Yeah, so anytime you've got something that says overflow, it means that you're able to overcap that resource by up to double. So effectively, overflow just means, like if it's leech, or if it's like, any other kind of thing that gives you back life, or for example, or mana or shield or whatever it is, it basically just means, you can get back up to double of that resource.
Okay, awesome. That makes sense even to me, and I'm pretty simple-minded.
Sorry, Buff Sherry. I kind of and just to show you. So, for example, this is the warrior, and you can ascend to a titan or a warbringer, right? So these are the ascendancies. There's 3 of them, but 2 of them are only available in early access, right? So these are the ascendancies that you can spec into, give you more power, more armor, other things, other skills. Same thing with the sorceress. The 2 that are going to be in early access are going to be the Stormweaver and the Chronomancer. Oop. The Ranger has Deadeye and Pathfinder ascendancy. The Monk has the Invoker and the Acolyte of Chayula. This is what we're talking about when we talk about ascendancy.
About these mechanical sort of things. Awesome, thank you. All right, another rapid fire. Can you use
Deadeye will be OP? Hey, Slug.
Ascendancies in meta gems like Cast on Shock?
No, you can't. So when you get one of those ascendancy skills, they effectively just appear in your skill screen. Like they're not a gem; they're just kind of like there and locked in by that. So because you can't take them out and put them somewhere else, you can't put them in a meta gem.
Okay. And then meta gems, can you use multiple of the same meta gem? I know you can't repeat supports, but can you have 2 cast on ignites in your build?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. But of course, you'll have to pay the spirit cost for both of them. So that's how that's balanced, and that's why it's fine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you guys released a teaser yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw a scepter minion ascendance, or not ascendancy.
Yeah.
Oh, the second scepter that looked like a mirror tier item, which was just awesome to see. All right, now we're going to move on from classes, and we're going to talk a little bit about combat. So when I played Path of Exile 2, the Raven fight and the Executioner fight hard locked me for combined about 4 hours. What right now do you think is the hardest boss fight in Path of Exile 2's campaign? Not the end game, but the campaign itself. And do you think it potentially is going to hard lock a lot of players if they're stubborn and they get that Elden Ring mindset where they're just like, I'm just going in over and over. I'm not stopping until it hits 0.
Well, so we've definitely tried to improve the issues that we had with that in that one. But what I would say is that the further you go into the game, the less kind of like of the feedback we've been able to address overall, just because if there's less of it, right? Like as you go further in. So effectively, what that means is that I have no doubt that if there's a boss that's going to hardlock people, it's almost certainly going to be in Act 3. I would say something like that. But I mean, on the same time, like ideally, the hardest bosses are later in the game. Like that's kind of what you want in some sense.
Yeah,
so,
no kidding.
Yeah, like I mean, look, some of those fights are pretty hard. I don't know that there's one that I'd point to as like this is the hard one. Really, I mean, as I said, we kind of try to make sure that they're all kind of a relatively even keel, or rather slowly increasing as you kind of go through. So yeah, my hope would be that the Act 3 end boss is one that people will find the hardest, and then ideally the second time through it's even harder again. So, but we'll see how it goes. And as I said, as you now know, right, like if you go around the rest of the areas, you'll find other stuff, you'll find more items and so on, and that'll definitely help you. And if you come back, you'll definitely do a lot better.
Question on bosses in regular versus ruthless, cruel. Do they have new abilities in cruel, or are they the same, just a little buffed with damage hit points?
So usually they don't have like completely new abilities, although I think that in some cases there might be a little bit of that. Usually what it is, it's kind of tweaking the parameters or the AI or the radii and like things like that, just like things about them. And it makes skills feel dangerous in new ways quite a lot of the time, just because you know, like a skill can be feel very differently just by changing where it is you go. So the same is true in maps as well, where once again you've got like we have to we effectively have to make sure that some of these bosses that were balanced for people who are level 10 or something are now able to feel like they're challenges in the end game. So effectively we have to do something about them. We can't just leave them as they are. There has to be tweaks. And so yeah, a lot of those changes effectively just get made to make and they make the bosses feel quite different. The other thing as well that you have in Cruel is that there are just monster types that have been shifted around and things like that. Like so the combat in areas can feel a little different as well. In some cases. So there's just little fun details like that that can vary things up and just vary the experience up a little bit.
Awesome. Now, one more combat monster related question, and it's revisiting a favorite topic of the Path of Exile community. Rare monster modifiers. We haven't seen a lot of that in Path of Exile 2 in the past little while. We've seen some of it in the playthroughs. Is that philosophy the same as in Path of Exile 1, or are we expecting to see 3, 4 mod rare monsters? And how do you keep the monster's identity when you add a whole bunch of modifiers to it? Because all these monsters, they're unique fights in of themselves, right? So how do you keep that clean?
There's actually been quite a lot of specific work on rare monsters that I don't think we've talked about to anyone yet, actually, and it's probably quite interesting. So the first thing I will say about it is that we realized a while ago that it's actually like not every monster type makes sense as a rare. Like if you just have a rare zombie, it's just kind of like it's not a good fight. So we actually decided, hey, you know what? We're going to pick monsters that are going to be ones that can be rare. And bear in mind, many of them can. And then what we'll also do is if there are monsters that that don't work well as rares, maybe there's mechanic changes we can do for rare versions of that monster that could improve that. So then what we started to do is we're like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to split out the monster types for monsters and then the rare version of that monster. And then we're actually going to do specific balance for the rares of those monsters. And that actually matters as well because there are mods that can go on certain monster types that like just completely blow out the life to unreasonable levels and things like that. Like there are actually cases where now that we've actually got the ability to do specific balance for a rare of a given monster type, we can actually tune that difficulty to make that much better. And so they'll get extra, they'll actually get extra abilities in some cases just because they're rare. Like, I mean, as a random example, there are like the very first monster, the quill, in the first area, so after the zombie, you've got the quill crab, which is these little things that shoot little spikes. And they also appear later on in the hunting grounds as like a poison version of those. And I believe if those are rare, I think I'm getting this right, then they immediately get a different way that the spikes work. And like I'm trying to remember the exact details of this, but it's like they like land on the ground and explode afterwards or something like that. There's like some little thing that sort of happens. So effectively, it's like there's like little specific things that we can do. And so that stuff, I think. Helps a lot. And look, I'm sure we're going to do more of this, like after the early access is launched as well, like more things like that. But it really upgraded the rare fights quite a lot to be able to do that specific balance. And then, of course, you also have the mods. And once again, we're doing a whole pass on mods and trying to make them a lot better. I mean, look, there's even more we can add here, I'm sure. But trying to make sure that each of the rare mods that we add, like makes sense for the monster. We make sure that the rare mods like there are pulls and tags so that like you don't necessarily get every single mod on every single monster to kind of make sure that they make sense and actually have a reasonable fight. And I don't even know if this got done, but there was talk at one point about having a for each rare. And once again, I don't know if this actually got implemented or not, but we were talking about having it so that for each monster. We make sure that at least one fun mod goes on the monster to kind of make it have like by what I mean by that is like we look at each monster type, we're like, okay, here's a set of different mods that are going to make it so that the fight has some kind of interest to it. We make sure the first step is like put
the
one of those
Toon
on
Lord.
it, and after that, then we can kind of be more random with what the rest of the mods are, and things like that. So yeah, there was actually quite a lot of balance stuff there that went into that, and there's more to come. But I think that the rare fights you will find are significantly more interesting in POE2 than they were in POE1 because of all the specific.
Just think of all the assets that they have throughout this process. They are building such a database of assets that it's just setting themselves up for so much in the future. It's just astonishing and just incredible. incredible. Like so I'm a PC Gamer magazine subscriber, and that article from that guy that talked about, like, he went on and on about just the monster diversity in the game when he played it, when they flew him out to play it. Like, he says is unbelievable. He's never seen a game with so much diversity in the monsters that we face. It's just crazy.
Specific attention that had.
They definitely sound like it. Everybody's freaking out. That sounds amazing, especially that first system of just the monsters changing implicitly if they're rare versus if magic or normal. That's a great answer. Can you answer if Soul Eater is in Path of Exile too?
I actually don't know the answer to that. You'd have to ask Mark that one. So he's the one who's been setting up all that stuff. So I actually don't know. I would have to go check with him on that one.
All right. Lovely. Love the answer, man. Okay. Now we got a bulky section on endgame that I want to dive into here. I want to start with, again, another infamous Path of Exile problem that we've experienced in Path of Exile 1. And I think it's one of the reasons you designed Path of Exile 2 in its endgame. One-shots. How are one-shots in endgame looking right now? I'm not talking about bosses.
They're going to be there.
Using huge abilities and obviously one-shotting you, but I'm just talking about randomly mapping your mediocre defenses and you just get one shot out of the blue. Is that happening in testing, or is that avoided for the most part?
Well, it's definitely happening at the moment, and that's because we just haven't finished the balance of a lot of monsters, and
it's Path of Exile,
dude. Things is actually really hard to completely root out because there are a lot of attacks that some people, depending on your playstyle, just might not get hit by. And obviously, you know, when the balance people do their initial balance, they try to get it right. But it's one of those things that's just easy to miss. And so I have no doubt that at the start of early access, there will be cases where some monsters are just unfair. You know, that'll happen. I mean, like when we were doing the beta test, there were these like spiders that were just like so nasty, and like we looked at the damage, and I don't remember exactly why this occurred, but it was just like, oh, it was literally doing 10 times the damage it was supposed to be doing, right? And like someone just made a typo.
Oh, great.
And yet, like we played a bunch of times, and like none of the people that were testing before we did a beta
100 turned out to be
right? They just managed to avoid it all the time. Or they only got hit by one of the bits, or you know, something like that. And so you know, we just missed it. Look, I'm sure that's going to happen, right? Like there will be some rough edges like that. You know, as soon as we hear about them, we will do our best to fix them. But look, we're trying to root out all that stuff as much as we can at the moment, and you know, hopefully the players don't experience too much of that. Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. But yeah, look, we don't want people to be just like randomly out of nowhere, just dying for nothing. Yeah, that's something we'll just have to make sure we're addressing as we get more balance testing in.
Well, the monk is known to be a glass cannon, apparently, Mage and Koba, so...
Right. The term I hear a lot from people, especially who went to the recent event in LA, is war of attrition. That's what it feels like in Acts 1, 2, and 3. So there's nothing really
exactly,
happening. You're fighting against monsters, they're draining you down, you're draining them down, and it's a war between you two. So there's no instant one-shots really happening unless it really is your fault. That's what I heard from like Big Ducks. He said, if I died, it was my fault. I felt good about that. I love that feeling. On monsters,
well, that is the goal that is the goal for sure, to make it feel that way.
Okay. And it sounds like the deadliness is on a by monster level. And a lot of people are curious. I think Mark said in the endgame presentation that every map is fully random at endgame. All monster types, no matter of biome. Is there anything that determines?
There actually is a like one monster, I believe, or at least a type of there will be one pack in the map that's always there, but all the rest of them are random. And the kind of main point we were trying to make with that is that in POE2, we pretty much all monsters. I mean, look, there are some like monsters that are just like swarmy little things that don't really do anything, but for the most part, monsters all have some kind of ability or mechanic or interesting thing going on with it. And so, in the end game, it really is the fact that you've got the combination of all those different types that really makes the combat interesting.
Yeah.
And you kind of never really know what you're going to get. And so, I mean, look, POE1 does have that effectively the same idea going on. It's just that so few of the monsters in POE1 actually have like different mechanics, right? Like like 1 in every 5 might do, but it's like in POE2, it's like there are so many more things going on. They have movement skills and like random abilities and things like that. It's just, yeah, there's just a lot going on with them. So yeah, it's the combination of that really gets you that really introduces that stuff.
Perfect. No, I love that. I love that there's a little bit of a theme that's there as you're hunting these
Right.
different biomes and maps, and then the rest is random.
Right,
It
but you're
makes
still
them...
the thing is you're still gonna get like some pretty out of place stuff. Like I know, like I went into a city map the other day and there's a gorilla attacking me, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing here? But you know, the end game's like that.
Are the bosses the same for every map? I'm sure they are. Like, you're not
Yeah,
going to get
yeah.
a
So
gorilla boss in the
effectively,
series. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the bosses are picked for the map if they spawn. Later on, we're talking about making it so that there are different, even within one map, we might have a couple of different bosses that can spawn there. But we'll kind of have to see how we go about that. It does take a bit of work, and so we haven't done that yet. And it kind of depends a bit on like how many maps there are versus how many bosses and that kind of stuff. So that can be fun too.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Sounds like some people would just get shocked as they walk in. That's how I expect to be when I walk into the pinnacle boss, whoever it is, for the first time. I expect to just get like Cirrus die beamed, and it's like, oh, all right, well, got to build up defenses better. I can't wait for that. On that note, too, all the boss arenas look like they have so much detail within them, and they're so distinct from their actual arenas from the campaign. The example I saw that stuck out to me was the Colossus is like now in the heart of a volcano. Is the level of detail and distinction there for a lot of the boss fights?
Yeah, so effectively we're trying to make it so that like ideally when we're using a boss in maps, we can put it in a different context so that it feels like a different fight. That like yeah, I mean look, we have to definitely reuse certain components of the arena because often there's arena mechanics that we have to make sure are there. But even just the feel of the arena that can make it feel quite different. Like for example, if you're talking about something like the Carrion Crone who's just in the second area. She's in a much bigger arena when you fight her in maps, and she also like all of her AOE abilities have been like ramped up so that they like have target a much bigger area, and things like the way the wolf spawning, that's like a different pattern. There's more of them and stuff like that. So effectively, like the fight actually feels quite a lot more advanced when you fight at a map for that reason, just because the arena's different and like the placement of all of the markers that the designers use to like configure all that stuff. Like they've that there's a lot more that's gone into that. So effectively, that can make the recontextualize the fight in quite a cool way.
Oh, that just sounds so exciting. How many of these are we getting on launch? Is it around 50?
Yeah, so the 50 bosses, like I mean, all the bosses that you have through campaign are in endgame in some way.
Okay.
So it's just a question of whereabouts, how we use them, and so on. But of course, then there's also the bosses that are in endgame that aren't in the campaign as well. So there's quite a bit of that too.
Yeah, the secret pinnacle that I'm going to try to get you to leak at some point during this interview.
You'll have to wait. I definitely won't be leaking that one.
Okay. All right, next question also on endgame. So previously, I think earlier this year in an interview, you mentioned that once you get to endgame, about a third of the loot will come from pack monsters, a third will come from special mechanics, and a third will come from bosses and maps. Now with bosses only being in every 4 maps on average, is that philosophy still the same, or has that shifted a little bit?
Yeah, so that definitely has shifted due to the change to the way the mapping endgame worked. So I mean, this was always a struggle, right? Because the real thing wasn't so much the amount of loot, but the amount of time you're spending on things.
Will
And
there be a
I
cow
think that
level?
having to spend 1/3 of your time, if you're not interested in doing boss fighting right now, is a little bit high, and definitely wasn't working. So I really we like to give players choice about what type of content they can fight, and we realized the bossing was also one of those type of things, right? Like, do you want to do bossing or don't you? So yeah, I think that the balance of that is a lot better now, and I honestly don't know what the percentage would be now that you sort of have control over it at this point. But effectively, yeah, like that has definitely changed around due to that.
Okay. And in testing, how is pack difficulty versus boss difficulty? Are bosses just way harder? Like, I know a lot of people say like, oh, I want to chill when I'm fighting packs, and then when bosses, they can be really intense. Is it kind of that difference?
Yeah, exactly. And look, the big reason for making the change of not having a boss in every map area was literally for this, right? To make it so that we can make the bosses actually hard relative to the pack difficulty, because that's what sort of that sort of maintains the integrity of the combat system, if you will, because like that's where you really have to get into the detail, like really concentrating and like actually using all your abilities to the maximum. Whereas pack clearing, you can chill out a little bit more. But that being said, we still want you to run into rares occasionally that are like crazy. So it's you still want that, but they're not going to be as crazy as the uniques are.
I think the 1 in 4 bosses being in 1 in 4 maps is brilliant, because think about this: if bosses were in every map and they still had that we could brick a map, can you imagine how many times you would brick a map? Right? Because it's exactly what Jonathan said. The fact that they went to 1 in 4 on average maps having a boss means that they can tune up the boss and actually make it a tough boss fight. Within reason, of course. Because then if you failed, whatever, it's one node, right? You can still go around. Whereas if every time we went into a node and there was a boss, oh my god, everyone would be bricking maps. No, bosses are weaker than trash mobs, and the mobs are god tier. You won't see it coming. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Rapid fire question on Endgame. Why does the Waystone or map opening UI still have 4 slots? Is that intentional? Is there something that hasn't been revealed?
So we actually had 4 slots when we started POE1 as well, even though we had no idea what we were going to use that for. So it's just like one of those things where it's just like you put it in there. It's like, maybe we'll use this one day. There's literally no other reason than that we had 4 in the back of the old days, and we're going to just do it again now. Just, it's fun little thing. And look, one day I'm sure we'll find something to do for that.
Okay, I love it. No, I didn't know that about Path of Exile 1, that it was always 4. That's hilarious. That's good. All right, another one that could be a little long. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a simple answer. So it sounds like there are currently 4 tiers of endgame boss or endgame encounters, but technically from what we saw from the Atlas passive trees, we can get +5 to those encounter levels. Right. Is the 5th tier meaningless, or is there an extra secret tier?
So what happened there is I'm a programmer, so I always count from 0. So when I say difficulty 4, it's like the first difficulty is difficulty 0, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's technically 5 difficulty tiers there, but I referred to the top one as difficulty 4. So maybe the players will refer to that a different way than I am, but
okay.
Yeah, that's just what that is. Now technically it is actually possible, because of the fact that the small nodes and the big nodes are the way they are. It's actually possible in some cases to cause it to be 1 tier even above that. But if you do that, it will not result in the difficulty being higher. That's actually kind of just a quirk of the way that the nodes are. So that's just effectively capped in that regard, which I guess might be kind of fun to have like an extra sort of hidden thing like that. But we decided not to in the end. So there's just there's effectively 5 difficulties, 4 difficulties above the bottom one.
I know you're saying that, but everybody needs to try that on launch, okay? There's a hidden difficulty, maybe that they don't want us to know about.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. This one might be pretty quick too. So how high in tier do Waystones go? We saw tier 79 in the endgame teaser. Is that
so I mean the way what it's supposed to be is like T15 is like it goes from T1 to T15. I think it might have been that it was listing object level there, and there might even have been some inconsistencies between different clips depending on when they were shot. I'm not 100% sure about that, but ultimately it goes from T1 to T15. However, there is a corruption outcome that can go +1. So that lets you that just lets you go a little bit further.
I love that.
With that.
Okay, so it was potentially like a monkey issue. That's what I'm going to call the
sure,
inconsistencies. The monkey issue. Okay.
If you like.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well that was it on Endgame for now. Now I just want to go into a few general questions about the game. Some rapid fire, some a little bit longer. This first one, I'm curious, going into early access, what's one system you are hyper confident won't need further iteration, and one system you're pretty sure is going to be broken under the weight of the players and you're going to need to have a lot of iteration on?
It's a really hard question. Look, I think that where I'm most happy is like all the way the skill and support system works, I think is very solid. Like I'm very happy with all of that. I think it's just a massive improvement over how POE1 was.
That's good. That's a core right there.
I would say that the stuff that's going to require a lot of iteration will definitely be endgame stuff, right? Because like that's the stuff that's had the least testing from players, from betas and things like that. Look, I have no idea what kind of changes we may want to see there. Like I'm pretty confident in it, but like you never know what will happen when people actually go for that. So I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that could need changing there, and we'll just have to work on that as we see the players, as we see what the players think. But the other thing as well is that of course the end game is where there's the most I guess like you have to get it right completely, because it's like that's kind of like your final, like the final experience you're having is like playing through that content. So it's like you can have a single boss fight that's like, you know, maybe people don't like it in campaign, that's like not a big deal. But if you're talking about just the you know the core staple of what it is that you're doing in the end game, you have to make sure you get that exactly correct. And even the tiniest details can significantly affect the experience. So you know, I'm sure there'll be a lot of tweaking there, and like some things maybe just like a tiny number tweak, but it ends up being like a massive difference as far as player experience goes. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of iteration there.
Okay. Now, one system that I've had a little bit of discussion about in my community is the flask changes. Are you pretty confident in those, limiting you to just having a life and mana, or do you see yourself perhaps allowing that for a wider variety of flasks in the future if you want to reintroduce them?
I do think that it is important to make it so that that is as simple as possible, because it really is one of those friction points you get for new players. But I think the charm system is really where we can go wild there. And so I think if we were doing like more kind of interesting stuff or like expanding on that, I think we'd do it in the charms where you know, we can. That's kind of intended to be, you know, the thing that you can you know, expand on with that stuff. I just don't want it to turn again into a situation where you feel like you have to constantly be pressing buttons like all the time in order to be able to do that stuff, because I think that really was kind of wearing on people. And it's like, if you're going to be pressing buttons, I would rather the buttons you're pressing are for using active skills rather than just using flasks. So yeah, ideally it can sort of move some of the like physical skill off just pushing flask buttons and move it onto using skills instead.
Okay. All right. This is a tough one. Maybe not for you. Over the past 6 or so years, what has been the single most challenging aspect of development? I know it's broad.
Yeah, so I think really the big challenge is just underestimating
the amount of
like
work,
the scope of what it is we set out to do. Yeah. And it's one of those things where we're constantly having to, you know, it's like we have a quality level we want to hit, and it feels like it shouldn't be as difficult as it is to hit that quality. Like it just really is a constant battle. Yeah, I mean, look,
I think that Jonathan, though,
it is difficult.
I think that's why so many people are resonating with this release. It's very obvious that you have hit a high quality level here. I mean, it's spread like wildfire. I saw you talking to DM and Ghazi and surprised at how many people are interested. I am having people who I haven't talked to in like a decade reaching out to me about POE2 because they're searching and they like saw my face or something and they're like, holy crap, there's this new game I just heard about. Like, it's spreading everywhere because the quality is so... you waited until it was ready to showcase it, right? And it looks phenomenal. So...
yeah, I mean, as I said, like just getting there has just been such a thing. Like when we announced in 2019, we thought that we were going to be releasing POE2 in like 2021. Like it felt like it was like 2 years out. Right. And you know, like it's just difficult, right? Like just the yeah, and even it's like even like is it how long ago now? I'm thinking
5 years.
Like so 20. Yeah, look, it's like the funny thing is it always feels like it's 2 years out. Like no matter how far deep into development, no matter how far away it is, it's always like because 2 years feels like forever, right? 2 years is like forever in the future, and so
2 weeks
therefore,
feels like
no matter
forever,
what
Jonathan.
the scope that
2
you
weeks
think that you
feels
have
like
is,
forever.
it's always like, oh yeah, we can do it in that amount of time. Sure, absolutely. And so yeah, it's just real tough. You know, like doing that, and it feels like no matter how much experience we get. I mean, obviously, you know, Mark and I have both been in game development a long time. No matter how much experience you get, it's like it still feels like it's impossible to really know how long something will actually take by the time you've gone things through. So yeah, it's just it's tough. It's tough for sure.
I know you said it always feels like 2 years away, Jonathan, but 9 days log in, okay? We're 9 days out.
Yep.
Yeah, Chris, I agree. I'm going to be very interested, as are a lot of people, on just the positive impact this game's going to have on the genre. And I'm very keen on a lot of things. The reception it's going to get, kind of like the initial feedback, but more long term, to your point, what it's going to do to this genre and how much forward it's going to take it. I'm very interested to see that and the impact it's going to have on, you know, the other ARPGs that are, you know, we can argue who's up there and who's not up there. But what does this do to Last Epoch? What does this do to Grim Dawn? What does this do to Titan Quest? What does this do to D4 and yada yada yada, all this kind of stuff, right? Like what, how are they, after that reveal, like what kind of impact it's going to have? So it's going to be very interesting. 2025, you know, when we turn the clock and we're at 2025, the game would have been out for just over 3 weeks, which is still a short amount of time. It's going to be very interesting to see kind of like the first 2, 3, 4 months of 2025, how this kind of influences all the other games out there. Mage versus Merc, what should I play? Hey, Demon. Sammy, what type of content will you focus on launch? Will you be providing updates, info, or dive into builds or crafting overviews? I'm really not a build guy, Demon. Although who knows, that could change. And you know what? The Path of Exile community is already blessed with such amazing like build type quantities or build guide content. I think what I'm going to do is, obviously I'm going to continue to, you know, provide updates into the game and like my opinion on the game, my take on the game. And I'm curious, I'm going to talk about what the ripple effect is with the other ARPGs. What else? Yeah, like I'm kind of, I have my core things that I'm going to continue to do. I'm still on the fence about, like I said, build guide stuff, because I'm not one when it comes to video games. I already have a full-time job that requires a lot of my brain capacity. And the last thing I want to do is come home and, you know, not shut down a little bit, if that makes any sense. And if you truly want to do build guides, you really have to understand everything. You know, I like sleeping at night, so I would never, you know, put stuff out there if I wasn't 100% confident on it. And when you're talking about builds, you got to be right on the money there. So, but yeah, so updates, info, and then we'll see. Maybe something will evolve. You know, there's a lot of unknown with POE2, right? So we'll see. Can we turn up the volume? I can't hear very well, thanks. Oh, I found my mic. I found my mic very high, so I turned it down. But sorry, XX. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and oh, thank you, Mr. Cove. You did remind me of one thing. The one thing that I'm gonna focus on, there's a lot of people in my community that are new to Path of Exile. Period. Never stepped foot in Rayclast. They've never played POE 1, let alone POE 2. So I'm going to be doing a lot of content on that, because in some way I'm a beginner too. So it'll be easy content for me. Well, content is not easy to make, but so it'll naturally come to me, right? Like I'm contemplating making a video right now for, you know, what does a beginner, how would a beginner take on Path of Exile 2? What are some of the things to, you know, beginner basics walking into December 6th, right? So I'm contemplating doing that. But yeah, I want to do I want to do content on the beginner type player, that is like me. Okay, I have some experience in Path of Exile, but very small amounts. Is that better, XX? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Yeah, and sorry guys. There's so much background noise going on. My studio. Yeah, my studio. Yeah. You want me to define studio? A desk facing a wall in a basement. That's my studio, guys. I'm in the basement, so the furnace hasn't effing stopped. It's literally like 10 feet away from me. And my basement is unfinished. So that's where you're getting the feedback from, the noise of the thing. Yeah, anyway. I also feel like many people haven't addressed the fact that we will likely have server issues due to the large... Oh, I hope not. But I agree with you, Demon. Yeah. So I keep an ideas board on my computer. Right? So I think of an idea for content and I'll just spitball it. I put it up on that board. And that's one of them. I hope I'm wrong because I took the day off. I took Friday and Monday off. So I'll be streaming Path of Exile 2 from the second it launches. And all weekend, all day Monday. I already warned my family. But I'm expecting a curveball. Well, honey, you know, just I told such and such they can come just for the afternoon. You know, that's not going to happen because... Well, it could happen. That's going to be one big argument right there. But anyway, so the game is supposed to be 2 p.m. Eastern my time. So I'm suspecting there might be some server issues too. And that means, you know, potentially we're not getting on until 3, 4, 5 p.m. my time, which I could have not taken the day off. If servers crash, we can always hang out on Sammy's channel. If the devs are saying they did not expect that much support on their early pack, can you imagine how many they got? And yeah, you took Monday, Tuesday off since I wanted to plan. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Demon. I appreciate it. Yeah, so yeah, like I contemplated taking a risk and banking on delays and not taking Friday off. But then I'm like, but what happens if it goes good? Like, let's just say it's 20 minutes, 25, 30-minute waits, and people are gradually getting in. Then, like, I could potentially be 3 hours behind, 3.5 hours behind. Like, that's not that I'm racing or anything, but I don't think I could handle it. Or could I work?
Thanks for the raid.
Oh my God, Hog! Hog, thank you, buddy. Thank you for the raid, man. Welcome, Raiders. How you doing?
Thanks for the follow.
Oof.
Thanks for the follow.
I got to turn my alerts off. How you doing, Hog?
Thanks for the follow.
Thanks for the follow, guys. Thank you, thank you. How you doing, Hog?
Thanks for the follow.
Sorry, guys.
Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the follow.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How you doing, Hog? How was your stream, buddy?
Thanks for the follow.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the love.
Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the follow.
Oh my God.
Thanks for the follow.
Oh my God. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for the follow.
Oh my God. I'm gonna kill you, Hog. I'm gonna kill you,
Thanks
buddy.
for the follow. Thanks for the follow.
Thanks for the love, guys. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Sorry for all that.
Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the follow.
I'm kind of flustered right now. I don't even know where to go to turn my alerts off. Thanks, Hog. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Hope you had a good stream.
Thanks for the follow.
Oh my God, Hog.
Thanks for the follow.
Wow, what a community.
Thanks for the follow.
Look at this Hog TV community. Wow. Wow, guys. Wow. Thank you, man. Yeah, the hype is real, Hog. The hype is real, man. 9 more days. 9 more days. What you up to, man? How was your stream? You're so pumped. I know. I know. It's crazy. I have not played a video game since the reveal. We've been just literally just consuming POE2 content since the reveal. I have literally not played a video game since. I don't think I've ever gone this long without physically killing anything in a video game. I don't want to play anything else. You were balls deep in Farm Simulator? Oh my God. Dude, you know how much money I spent on getting into the alpha with Ashes of Creation?
Thanks for the follow.
Like, every weekend, people come on my channel and my streams. What happened to Ashes of Creation? I'm like, Path of Exile 2 happened, bro. Yeah. I'm not even playing it. No, I played it like, I don't know, maybe 7 hours. That's it. Crazy. Hey, Vampire Bat. No problem, man. Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you. Hey, Hog. So when I put that comment on your video and you responded, I hope you saw my other comment. So sometime next year. Ah, thanks, guys. Dusk Reaver, thank you for gifting 5 tier 1 subs, man. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But anyway, Hog, 2025, you and me, couch co-op. All right, we're gonna plan it. We're both gonna be very busy in the beginning, but we got to make that happen in 2025. Let's do it. You're down? Awesome, awesome. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. It'll be a blast. Have you picked your starting class? You're playing Sorceress? Oh, come on.
Thanks for the follow.
Come on. No, I want to play the Sorceress. Yes, yes. Have you seen Subtractum's video? Go watch Subtractum's video. Go watch Subtractum. Like, I haven't announced what I'm playing. I'm going to announce it on the 5th. You know, more content, right? But Sorceress is up there. I'll leave it at that. Oh, they put out an Archmage pre. Oh, yes, I saw that. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah, crazy. Crazy. Unbelievable. Anyway, we're just watching Try's video. When are you, Hog, when's your thing with Try? That's what you played in D2? I got to go back. I always play the Sorceress. It's my favorite class in all the games if they have it. After the launch? Yeah. Yeah, same with me. I think I'm on the 16th. Oh, all right. So we're pretty close. Okay. Yeah, same with me. I picked a date that was after. And I wanted to give some time so I didn't, you know, so I could play the game. Awesome, awesome, man. Cool. Well, welcome, welcome, Raiders. I'm Sammy Caps, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the youngest. I will be the youngest Path of Exile 2 player. So, just so you know. What? You're on the 16th as well? I can see that. What? Don't let the gray hair fool you. He has 2 a day. Oh, nice. Sounds legit. Sammy is Benjamin Button confirmed. Oh shit, that's a good one. That is a good one. Oh my god. I played D1 demo on CD, so I'm there with your brother. Oh shit. Well, thank you, Hog. Thank you, Hog, for making my demographics younger.
Thanks for
D1
the follow.
D1 was on PlayStation 1. To be honest, it's nice to see the POE community being so welcoming. Oh my god, Fader, absolutely. Well, Hog, look, you guys have to understand. I've grown a little bit since Hog initially reached out to me, but Hog was one of the first to reach out, and he was already at superstar status when he reached out to me. A super cool guy, super nice guy. And yeah, the POE community has been very welcoming, as has been Try. Literally the first video I ever did on Path of Exile, Try sent me a message, welcoming me, and if I ever needed anything, like super welcoming. You're a trash pile. Oh shit, too funny. But smelly trash? Hog is smelly trash? No, he's not. No, he's not. All right, Hog. Have a good one, man. Thanks again, Hog. Thanks, buddy. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it, man. Have a good dinner, and we'll talk soon, man. All the best. Thanks again, eh? I appreciate it. All right, guys. Okay. Hog's going to go fishing and have some dinner. He's probably going to go get on his boat and go catch dinner. So while he's doing that, so welcome, guys. Thank you. We were just watching the Try interview with Jonathan here, guys. So we're just going over. And if we have some time, we're going to go and watch Legendary Drops. This was another interview that was dropped today, apparently. I don't know if we're going to have time to go into this, but we'll see. So anyway, we're going to continue here.
So a few really rapid fire questions here. You guys opted in for GeForce Now for POE2. Do you know if that's going to be available for early access launch, or I know you guys don't have control over that, but do you know if it will be available?
I believe it's supposed to be.
Wow.
We've been told it is. So hopefully that all works out and people can use that.
Awesome. Now, how about the trade site on day one? Is that going to be functional?
Yeah, so we're doing everything we can to make sure that's the case. I think that there'll be some items that maybe won't show up correctly, and hopefully, like for example, the way that skill gems are rendered is like completely changed, and so I think what they're going to do for skill gems is just like show the name of the gem and the level, rather than having to work out like all the stats and everything, how that works. And I think for something like gems, it doesn't really matter because there's nothing about the gem other than just like the name and the level that actually matters as far as trade is concerned. So they're going to do their best to get everything rendering correctly, but I think it's really important to make sure we've got trade on day one.
Nice. By the way, guys, for everyone that just popped in, if you don't have a key for early access, hop on over to X and find me, Sammy Caps. I'm giving away some keys to early access. So get on in there and try out your luck. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter, on X, sorry. You got to follow, like, and retweet, and it's Sammy Caps. So just find this post, and good luck. Hopefully you get a key.
definitely. Oh yeah, people love trading. Now PvP, does that exist in any form? Yeah,
So
like
you
simple
can
duels.
yeah, you can do simple duels.
No, Dusk Reaver. What did Quinn do? I'm afraid to ask. What did he do? Shit.
Just like you duels like you could in POE1. We're not going to be doing anything more than that for now. Yeah, that's it's there, but like we haven't done any effort really towards it. It's just like, you know, like it just is what it is, just as a fun thing if you want to challenge your friend.
Wait a minute. He purposely showed it. He purposely showed his keys and just said free for all. Oh, Audible. Thank you, man. Thank you for gifting the 10 tier 1 subs to the community. Audible nod. Oh my God. Thank you for the love, man. Thank you, guys. Oh my God. You guys are way too generous. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, thank you, man. Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
Thanks for the follow.
Quinn is Quinn.
And just like, you know, just do a thing. You can do that if you want.
Cool. Now, in the second run through of the campaign, Cruel, do bosses once again drop permanent buffs as they will on the first run through for those optional bosses, or are none of those available in the second run through?
Yep. So the second run through, it definitely does have that. So yeah, you're going to want to look for those as well. I believe that for them, that some of them are the same and some of them are different. So you'll have to look around through the map to see what's going on with that.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
Curious.
Polar.
Now, this one is, I want to be gentle with it, but it's something that a lot of people have talked about in the past. There is an MTX that is audio based that plays in towns, and everyone wants to hear
I will
the
Audible, but
sweet
thank you, man.
songs
I
of
really do
Neo when they
appreciate
go
it.
into
Thank
the
you.
Clearfell encampment. Is there any way that you guys are thinking about maybe an audio slider for MTX or something like an audio adjustment maybe, or is that on your radar?
I mean, it's something that I've heard complaints about recently, so it's something that we might have to think about, but I can't say I've got a solution for it right now.
Okay.
By the way, just one question, speaking of audio, do you hear like a loud beeping, or is that just on my end?
That is just on your end.
Okay,
Chat,
sure,
do we
fair
hear a loud beeping?
No loud beeping. Try no loud beeping.
Let's see. No beeping. It's on your end.
All
Is
right,
everything
cool,
okay
good.
at
Yep,
the GGG
yeah,
office?
I think it's fine. It's just coming through my headset, so I'm not sure what's going on. It's all right. It's fine. I'll just ignore it.
They're telling you to not talk about the goblins.
Hey, Weasable.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh my.
unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you for that, but
Okay, no,
yeah,
that's
I understand.
totally fine.
I do understand the issue, though.
Okay. Now, oh, sorry. Items. So, in the last time people got their hands on POE2, we saw obviously the tiers, which you talked about, and can't wait to get my hands on that. We also saw items dropping with terms like advanced, expert, and ultimate. Are
Oh,
those
yeah,
related
yeah,
to tiers, or what is that?
So the reason why that is because so we didn't want to release. So what we've done in POE2 is that all of the acts, they have a much more like the items that you find in each act are like way more related to the content of that act. So like as soon as you go to the desert, you're going to be finding like all of these like Marrakech themed items and so on. So for Act 4 and 5 and 6, we've obviously got a whole big set of base types that are all like, you know, related to those things. And so what we did was we're like, okay, we don't really want to like just have those dropping now because they kind of don't make sense for the content you're in. So what we decided to do was effectively make a duplicate of the base types that goes into the second set of difficulty, in second difficulty, and that way we can drop all of those there, and then that will mean that we just don't have the we don't have that we don't have to release all of that stuff now, and then effectively at the point when we release the acts, we'll effectively also release the base types at the same time, and those base types will get replaced by the and the art and everything will get replaced by the new base types that we've already got.
It's a fails
So,
clip.
yeah,
That's
that's
how it got
effectively
released.
the,
Leaked. Wow.
What's going on with that. Now, in in-game, there are some base types that relate to just in-game. I'm not 100% sure exactly what the situation is with regard to the art stuff that they've done there, but effectively, by the time we're sort of completely done, it should be that we're not like having to repeat any art anywhere and all that sort of stuff. But for the time being, we've just got the that going on.
Audible. I'm 95% sure on the class that I want to play, but I'm not going to announce it till the 5th because I'm a drama queen. So I'm leaving 0.5% to somehow have my mind changed, but I'm pretty sure on what I'm going to play. But I'm most likely going to make that announcement the night before. It's Sork.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Now, also related to items in the tiers. Obviously, tier 5 item will have amazing mods, amazing rolls,
I'm not telling you.
once you identify it.
Mhm.
What happens if you craft on it? Does it
So yeah, it doesn't affect anything after you've identified it. So
You ain't
effectively,
getting it out
once
of
you've
me.
ID'd it, like you've seen the mods are there, then effectively it is just a regular item as far as any other, like just like any other item would be. And that's kind of important because it's only really in the unidentified state when you see the tier. After that point, the tier doesn't matter anymore because like the decision that resulted from that is already decided and everything's everything's done.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the question, by the way, MP. That was from Empyrean. Okay, another one. So, I know that you vastly increased the number of orbs that are dropping in early game, and the intent is for people to be using said orbs on crafting. Are you at all worried about how this will affect the greater economy if people decide to just hoard everything and try to post it on the trading post? I'm curious about that because I'm going to be spamming my gear, but I think a lot of people will be like, I'll just save it to trade, you know?
I think it will be fine. So the nice thing about currency is that it's self-syncing, right? Like you get to actually use all that stuff, and I'm pretty sure people will be using it more because they have more. Like, I
Absolutely.
think that's just how it will work. So usually speaking, you don't really get hyperinflation with currency items because the way that they actually have as I said, because they're self-syncing.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like we never really can tell exactly what will happen with an economy until we actually see it. But I really hope we don't have any problems from that because having the more currency in the game just definitely makes the game significantly better to play through the game. I'm loving it. I just like the experience of doing all that stuff. So yeah, I really want to be able to keep that. And I think just the fact that
Guy, so how you guys feel about this? If some of you, I'm sure all of you are already aware of what they're talking about, but for those of you that don't, so now in Path of Exile 2, there's kind of like this crafting on the go kind of thing where we're going to have those orbs, the currency that Jonathan's referring to, that will be able to allow us to, as an item drops, we pick it up and, we can upgrade, the affixes and prefixes on it. We can upgrade the rarity of it on the go, right? With this currency that's going to be dropping for us. And the currency is stuff that we're familiar with in Path of Exile, but it's going to drop more frequently. How do you guys feel about this shift? Is it a change that you guys like, this, crafting on the go kind of thing? And that's how I'm phrasing it. You love it, right? Yeah, I totally agree, Audible. Like, man, I love it. Do you guys think it was a little bit, they got a little bit of a motivation from Last Epoch? Great decision. Atticus, I will smash ground with Warrior at day 1. Appreciate it, man. Great decision. I love the idea. Won't be able to play POE2. Will kill my bandwidth per month. Sigh. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I love it. I totally love this decision that they made. Not enough since there's no auction house or SSF bonuses. Not enough since there's no auction house or SSF bonuses.
you kind of don't have the scouring orb anymore, and the way that like things are always added, like you're going to be wanting to add mods all the time, like it's just a common thing. And there's even sort of rules, like for example, so it used to be that when you alked an item, it gave you a random set of mods from 4 to 6, but now it's always 4, so it's like there's always going to be that you want to do the alk and then the exalts. So like there's just more uses for that stuff. Like the adding stuff definitely happens more often.
Yeah, I heard somebody got 4 exalted orbs by the end of Act 1 and just felt so good being able to slam their items. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Runes. I know they're a recent addition. I had a few questions about them.
Love it.
First, are all runes just basic stats such as resistances and the like, or are there any spicy combinations that might remind us of fan favorite ARPG, maybe later down the line.
So we don't have rune words. And the funny thing
Confirmed.
the funny thing about that
Come
is
on,
that,
Jonathan.
I actually had a long conversation about this because it's one of those things that everyone remembers loving. But the funny thing about that is that like what they actually remember loving was not so much the mechanic of rune words, but just the fact that all the rune words were super OP. The rune words were just crazy powerful. And so like when people are like, oh, I love
Hey,
rune words,
Paulo.
it's like they think it's the mechanic they liked, but no, like it's just the items were just absolutely outrageous. It's
Yeah,
sort of
please no.
funny how it was like that.
Okay.
But what I will say is that like so runes are intended to be the kind of simple ones that don't have a lot of a lot of complexity going on. So it's the soul cores that you can put in the same sockets. Those are the ones that are intended to kind of have where there's more complexity, there's different stats, there's different things going on with them.
Okay. And with those, they're unremovable, correct? You can't take them out
Correct,
of gear
yes.
once you socket them in.
Ooh.
And that's just kind of our general philosophy of the fact that
Why?
we want most crafting to be additive. Now, we still do have some crafting things that remove mods, but I guess the difference with the sockets is that every single mod that went in there, it's like there's no randomness to those decisions, right? Like every single thing you put in, it's like you completely controlled that outcome. So therefore, we don't feel like we have to provide a way to remove that because it's like that's entirely in your control. Whereas when you're talking about the random chance addings, like then it's like there can be ways that are also based on random chance to be able to remove that again. And then we've also got things like the omens that allow you to have more control over that. So like that sort of stuff makes sense. But for the socketables, it's like, well, yeah, it's like you chose to put that in. It's like, I think the additive philosophy works fine for that.
So Audible, the thing with sockets is, so now gear will be able to drop, and you can also, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you can also, they not only drop, but there's also a way to get sockets with gear. But they're going to drop. So stuff is going to drop with sockets, not in the traditional way that we're used to it in Path of Exile. So how it is in Path of Exile 2 is that 2 sockets is the most, and that's on two-handed weapons, and chest piece can have up to 2 sockets. Everything else, including a one-handed weapon, will have the capability of 1 socket. And the intent of that is to kind of, if you have a build and you're kind of missing out on the res or you're missing out on damage, you're going to be able to find ruins and compensate for that. So that's kind of the understanding I have of why they put sockets back in gear, is to kind of give you that possibility of making up for the resistances that you're missing, or damage, you want more damage, that kind of thing. You can valid to get a 3rd? That I didn't know. And thank you, Scratch. What are you guys saying? Yeah, but risky. Yeah, so of course, risk reward, right? Lucky roll on Val can add 1 socket beyond normal limit. Okay, there you go. So it could go, a 1 socket max can go to 2, and a 2 socket max can go to 3. But anyway, that is kind of like the intent behind the socket and the ruin. The ruins.
Okay. Awesome. Now, 2 more questions on items here really quickly. One of them is about Splinter stack size. Now, I know we want to declutter the screen for Path of Exile 2 and keep the focus on combat, but it looked like from the trailer, the stack size, for example, the Breachstone is still 300. What's the design philosophy between like 300 stack size and 25 stack size?
So they actually drop like in stacks, and the reason why that's important is because it means that we can have effects that say if there's a mod that's like 10% splinters, it means that when we drop a stack of 10, that plus 10% can actually make it a stack of 11, so basically it's just to give granularity so that when we're dropping them, we actually can have the mods like a plus 10% can actually be a thing that actually does something. So that's the reason why it's 300. It isn't necessarily to change like the amount of like things on the screen or the amount of the amount of duration that it takes to actually get to the boss. It's just about the granularity for mods, basically.
Okay, awesome. One more item question, and then just one final question for you. Thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. Will there be vendor recipes in Path of Exile 2? And if so, any examples?
So we actually decided to not do the system the same way how we did it before. So each, so basically, we no longer have the vendor recipe like idea as a concept where there's just a vendor who, where you can just do like any combination of items in the vendor. So the vendor that has that same UI is like for disenchanting. And then effectively what we've done is we've tried to pull like the different vendor recipes out into like benches or like items in the world or like NPCs with specific modes or things like that. Effectively like all of those things we want to try and make sure that they're kind of like just more discoverable than what they were in POE1. Wow. So like what we kind of want to do is like if we're going to do
That's a W.
like for example the quality recipe where you had like 40% quality and you get a whetstone.
Yep.
Now that we've got the salvage bench, that's like a specific bench that's able to effectively replace the thing that was doing by something that effectively serves the same function, but it's like discoverable now because you've got like a bench that's dedicated to quality and also socket currency items. And if we're going to do for example, a 3-to-1 recipe, there is an item, a thing you get later, which has like three
huge
slots
W for new
slot,
players,
then
Chris.
You click the button
Huge.
and like, combines them. And it's like got its
That's
own
why
thing.
they did
So
it.
effectively, it means that like it's like more obvious like when there's stuff like that. And effectively, for each time when we want to have something that's like a vendor recipe, we can sort of find a place to put it, like make it more thematic, like have a little UI for it. There's even things like
Thanks for the follow.
Other ones, but effectively, whenever, but effectively, whenever we're doing, when we need a function like that, I think it's cooler to have a specific user interface, a specific place, a specific NPC, a specific object, like something like that you find that allows for that. And so it kind of gives you a hint that such a thing even exists in the first place. And then now that you've seen that, you're like, okay, what actually goes in here? Like, what is this for? Like, then like maybe you can have like little lore hints, things like that. It just makes the whole thing a little bit more discoverable, and I think a little bit more interesting. So that's effectively how I've replaced that system.
Yeah, when you said that, now I'm thinking that there could be nodes on the Atlas that house systems like this, little secrets where you could go and find these little crafting benches, which just sounds like so much fun. I know we talked about it earlier, the Atlas and the exploration aspect of it.
Right.
Huge W. I cannot wait to go in and just explore it. It's going to be great. Yeah. Okay, Jonathan, I've got one last question for you, and then we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time again.
No problem.
I want you to give me the best single reason for everyone in the chat right now, everyone watching this VOD, to buy a supporter pack and log in on December 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern.
I think that really probably the main thing that you're going to love is just fighting those bosses. The combat with them is just like so fun. They're so varied and interesting. Like I'm just like, there's a lot of them to fight. If you play on December 6th, there'll be a lot of bosses to fight, and I'm sure you're going to have a great time with them. It really is, I think, one of the things we're doing the best out of all the things we're doing.
Jonathan, will you be logging in on December 6th?
Of course. I mean, as soon as there's some kind of horrible fire with the servers, then I'll immediately have to probably deal with that.
Please no, Jonathan, please. I took the day off.
So long as there aren't any problems, I'm going to be playing, absolutely.
All right, Jonathan, man, it's been great. Every time I talk with you, it's always so smooth. Everybody appreciates your time. Good luck the next 9 days. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great,
I'll talk to you later, man.
Great to talk to you.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you guys think? Again, the recipe is another example of how Grinding Gear Games is going out of their way to really make this the barrier of entry. They have really brought it down, and in combination with still keeping the complexity of what makes PoE so good. I just applaud them for every opportunity that there was a chance for them to lower the barrier of entry but still keep the oomph in the game is just remarkable. And like I said really early on in the stream, looks like they are, man, this game is going to be this is going to be crazy, guys. This is really going to be crazy. Hey, Cora, how are you? Such a great interview. Yeah, he did. Yeah, Try did a good interview. Absolutely. When you think about it, the vendor recipe system in Path of Exile 1 is very cryptic and accessible overall. Correct. When I came into Path of Exile 1, if it wasn't for chat, I would have never found out about the Chaos Orb recipe. Never. I would have never found out about it. You know, you can go in the help menu in Path of Exile, and there are the recipes there for the +1s on the weapons, and you know, the flasks, you know, but those are really basic ones. But you really needed to either like source it out, go on, you know, YouTube, or you know, not everybody streams, so they're not talking to people while they're playing the game, right? Like the chaos recipe, that's something that should be like, boom. That's such a great way to make currency early on in the game. You're gonna have to explore the entire zone. Yes. I don't know. I might change my philosophy once I get into it, but I'm going into the early access with the intent to play slow and like investigate every area. Jonathan said they want to reward players for going down those hallways that leads to dead ends and having surprises there. You know, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but I really do. That's my intent of how I'm going to play the game. But who knows? When, you know, adrenaline that day, and I might just whiz by through everything. I don't know. We'll see. I have a question. Anyone know if the POE server is down? I can't log in. Any idea when PS5 will be able to pre-purchase the beta? I really don't like Sony. I don't know, Rez. All I know, welcome, Rez. All I know is that I know I've seen that your comment a lot, and I don't have an idea. The only thing I heard about PS5, and sorry, I don't have a PS5, is that there's rumors that you need to be a PS Plus member to play it. And the only other thing I know is about the MTX. You know, that unfortunately the account system change that happened that is not applicable to PlayStation users as far as your MTXs, your purchases going over to POE2, unfortunately. Rez, sorry, didn't hear your response. What was your question again? Oh, PS5. Yeah, Rez. You had ads. Sorry about that. No, I have not heard anything about PS5. Sorry. All I know is that apparently you got to be a PS Plus member to play. Again, I don't know. This is just me hearing some things. And obviously the MTX, the microtransactions, you can't bring them forward in Path of Exile 2. Sorry, but that's a Sony thing. It's not, has nothing to do with grinding gear games. Sony being Sony, addicted to loot. Yep, absolutely. Money first, everything else is secondary. Yeah, it's proprietary. You know, they don't want to share that. Well, whatever, right? Whatever the reason is. They're a big company. They can get away with it, I guess. But I think this may test their patience because, as I've been saying for many days now, this is going to be a huge day on the 6th. A huge day. And to me, Path of Exile was always limited in its potential because of the huge barrier to entry. Massive. So many players wouldn't even touch the game because of it. That looks like it has been dropped significantly, and people are hearing about it. And also what they've done to the console aspect of the game. They now have a department for console and all the things, couch co-op, cross-play, cross-progression, all these things, lowering the barrier of entry, keeping the same oomph that's in the game, that what makes like this is all It's all W's, 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 W's. It's going to be a floodgate on the 6th. A floodgate. When you worried D4 devs, you did well. Yeah. The weapon swap that can be tuned with a dedicated passive looks so innovative. Can't wait to hop in and try this. Great work, GGG. Yeah, they did a phenomenal job, Cora. Phenomenal. And again, I'm going to keep plugging it, but I'm giving away keys to early access, guys. We're going to be doing it on stream. I just haven't started giving away the keys on stream. That's going to happen shortly. But currently, right now, I just posted this today. I'm going to be giving away Path of Exile 2 early access keys on X. So just find me, Sammy Caps. All you have to do is find this tweet. It was from today. Follow me, like the tweet, retweet it, and good luck. Good luck. That's if you don't have a key. And like I said, we're going to be doing giveaways on stream in the up and coming days. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Give you a follow on YouTube. Also followed your videos on LE. I plan on buying keys for both PS5 and PC. I'll be in queue on both in case it's down on the... Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way. That's good. That's really nice. Oh my God, Audible. Come on, bro. Come on. Thank you, Audible Note. Thank you. Thank you for gifting 10 more Tier 1 subs to the community. Thank you, man. Thank you. It's not necessary, guys. It's not necessary, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And guys, if you got a Tier 1 sub from Audible, please make sure you thank them. Audible Note, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your generosity. I do appreciate it. It will be my little cheat sheet since the game is cross progression. Yeah. Yeah, and remember, guys, the code, if you are purchasing the keys, they are going to be wherever you purchase them, that's where they're going to be redeemed, right? So remember that. Okay, so as usual, Try did a really, really good interview. And by the way, guys, I'm talking to Try on, I think, December 16th, 8 p.m. I think 8 p.m. Obviously, when we get closer to that date, I'll be posting that. But Try and I are going to be talking, and so we're talking on the 16th. So that's like 8 days. No, 10 days of gameplay that we'll have under our belt. So it should be an interesting discussion. That's after the 6th. Yes, correct. Yeah. I go. All right. So there's also this one that I wanted to look at. Some people linked it to me. Legendary Drops. This guy's I haven't seen a lot of his content, but I have seen some. This guy's a very, very good YouTube. Like, his content is really tight and solid. So I think this gets more into the theory. So Path of Exile success. Why? Like, it looks like he's talking about topics that I kind of gravitate to. So I'm very interested to see what this discussion is all about. Let's see.
Co-founders and the technical director of Grinding
Guys, let me know if it's too loud,
Path of Exile
okay?
1 and their upcoming game, Path of Exile 2. This is an incredibly special conversation where we get to talk about both games, the success of the first one and what we get to look forward to in the second one. But even more so, I even go in to talk about some of the issues that I'm seeing in the games industry today. We have a little bit of back and forth on that as well. This is a very special interview, a very cool video. I am so happy to share this with you guys. It would not have been possible if it wasn't for you in the first place. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to reach these people. So I have to thank you for this.
No, I haven't, Audible.
This video is that thank you. Enjoy. Drew, so you're one of the founders of Grinding Gear Games. What led you guys to make Path of Exile, and did you guys think you would make it this far?
So I actually was one of the founders straight out of university.
Okay.
I was friends with Chris, who he was basically my best friend through university, and we kind of. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a game developer from the point I was like 10 years old, right? Like I was doing game development like as a hobby right from that point. So it really wasn't a question of like, was I going to be a game developer? It was a question of like, how is that going to happen? And Chris, he was actually the one who sort of suggested, look, what we need to be doing is making a sequel to Diablo 2. That was basically his view on things. And I obviously love Diablo 2 as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't like at the time when he was suggesting this, I wasn't still a player of it. You know what I mean? Like I'd played it a huge amount earlier, but Chris was still deep in Diablo 2, and obviously loved the game. But he just made a really good case for the fact that you know what, like there hasn't been a game that got the whole formula right for a really long time. Like there was no evidence at the time that Blizzard was making it, right? Like we just had no idea.
Yeah, there was like a 10-year lull or something, right?
Yeah, it was that because I mean, that's the whole thing. But effectively, they hadn't announced anything. You know, like as far as we were concerned, it was just like here's just a game that was still selling. By the way, like people were still selling physical copies of Diablo 2.
Yep.
Like it might have been like 10 years later or something like that. There was still game was still selling like
That's how crazy good it was.
It's still good today.
Yeah, there were you and so you had a game and it's like, okay, no one's made like a true successor to this thing. It's still selling in stores. Obviously, people, you know, there's still a huge amount of demand for this stuff. Why the hell, you know, like, are we not the ones doing this? So, yeah, I mean, basically, we decided, hey, we'll just get started. And I was doing a lot of hobby game development. Chris had done a little bit of that, but you know, he was actually doing some security stuff. And we were just like, okay, like, well, let's just do it then. So yeah, we just started writing code and getting things done, and you know, we went a long way. And you know, I remember at the very beginning, because like we actually did like think, okay, well, what is the what would success look like for doing this? Like what, like if we're going to do this, like what would we have to actually achieve? And the thing that we thought that we needed to achieve was effectively 10,000 concurrent players. That was the amount that we sort of worked out that if we had that, the amount of money that we would be making would be able to support the studio, and everything would be okay. So that was kind of our like what we were trying to do. So anything beyond that point, as far as we were concerned, was just gravy. You know what I mean? Like everything beyond that was great. So yeah, I mean, we pretty much achieved that like right from the start.
Think about where they've like look. That's where they started. I love hearing like these kind of stories where it's crazy. They went from that to where they are today. It's crazy. Don't give up on your dreams, guys. Don't give up on your dreams.
Like as soon as we had our closed beta, like, you know, things were going well and the company just did really well. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, as I said, like that was kind of our thing. Like we never really at the time sort of thought that we weren't thinking like we had to be the biggest game ever. We were just like, we can be sustainable if we have 10,000 concurrent users. So that's the audience we need to attract. If we can do that, then we're good. And so that was kind of our thinking. I think the sort of the grander scale is something that yeah, it wasn't really in our mind.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, Path of Exile has been a bit of a standout success, especially like with free-to-play games, ARPG specifically. I still think there's not a lot of competition out there. Even you guys saw an opportunity, and I mean, we've had a couple of games come out over the last few years, but nothing in the same vein. What do you guys attribute to the game's longevity and its success?
So when we started, I guess what we saw was there were kind of like 5 pillars to make a good action RPG. Like there's what and these are the things that we thought, okay, like there are people who have some of these, but there's no other game that has all of them except for Diablo 2. So the first one would be well, I mean, in no particular order. You've got random level generation.
Yep.
For longevity, you just need to have it. You need to have it. I mean, you need to do it well, because if you don't have that, I mean, look, things are just going to get boring very quickly. You just play through the same thing 1,000 times. I mean, obviously, even with random level generation, that can still happen, but it takes a lot longer. The next thing is a secure online economy. So effectively, you have to have the ability to trade items, and it has to be secure in the sense that nobody can dupe them. There's no cheats. There's nothing like that. Like that's really important for that long-term feeling, because it makes the stuff that you find feel like it has value. Yeah. Which I think is very important for the long term. The next one is that you have to have a random item system. So, and what I mean by that, what I mean is like the item system has to have elements of chance, and
Loot.
it has to be that anything you
loot.
kill could be the thing that could drop the next amazing thing that you need to find.
The aha moment.
In practice, since we launched, we have also added more deterministic things as well, which I think do have a place. But you certainly need it needs to be that just killing any random monster could be the one that drops like the amazing item. Like you still need that feeling all the time. Otherwise, you like. If you don't have that, then what happens is that you see then you finish a grind, and then the next giant grind is like stretching out ahead of you. And if you don't think you're going to get any rewardingness until the point where you finish that, that's a good moment that you might choose to quit. So it's actually one of those things that is really important as well.
Yeah.
The next one is you need action combat. And at the time, the reason why we were talking about there
These are
is
great
as opposed
fucking
to the kind of more
answers,
MMO
man.
style combat that you had back then, which was like very like just everything's on cooldown, like you have a million abilities and it's just kind of like one thing after the other. That sort of cooldown rotation, like sort of slower paced combat that you had from the MMOs at the time. And was that all of them, or did I say 4? I can't.
That was
remember
4. One more.
now. Where was I up to? Did I miss one?
4.
Maybe, I think so.
No, right. So there was the other one. The other one was a deep.
You said the loot
system
and
of
the
character
action
customization.
combat and the trading.
Yeah. So a deep system of character customization. So effectively, you need enough depth in the way that you build your characters to make it so that you're willing to play through the same character. So not through the same character, through the game again, but with a different build, so that can still be interesting to you. That was something that D2 didn't really have as much. But one thing D2 did have was the concept of the ladder reset, which is effectively like the fresh economic start. And that concept was ultra important because, once again, if you're doing ladder resets, then you need to, have the ability for your character to be different every time. There needs to be lots of build variety and things that you can do so that you feel like you're having a different experience each time as well. So those are kind of the like 5 pillars that we had. And I think that really at this point, the one that I think a lot of companies still don't have, the ones that I think that companies still often don't do, one of them is they're really afraid to do full economic resets where there's absolutely zero progress that carries on between the leagues. That's something that so a lot of companies are doing seasonal content now, but the thing that after they do the first one that players will always say is, oh, we want you to have some way to skip the campaign, we want to have some way to to blah blah blah, keep right. They're going to say that, right? But I think it's actually ultimately long term very harmful because it means that when you have a full economic reset, it means that new players can join your game and not feel like they're behind everyone. Like they're behind everyone in terms of knowledge, but they're not behind everyone in terms of physically speaking, everyone who starts a Path of Exile league is on the same playing field, apart from what they know about the game. So I think that's super important. So that's one that a lot of companies still aren't doing. But the other one as well that a lot of companies don't do is item trade with no binding of items, and so that really keeps the value. And a lot of companies are very afraid to do that. It's one of those things I think is ultra important. Like it leads to so many problems, and people look at the problems and they assume that those problems are worse than the benefit. And I think that's partly because the benefit is a little bit more intangible. Like it's harder to kind of appreciate the value that players feel. Like because it's kind of it doesn't even kind of matter initially, and it's like one of those longer term kind of like concerns. But I think that is really valuable, and it's something that I wish more games would do.
I'm actually really happy you said something about that because I think it's one of the things where I look at you guys. I also I play Warframe. That's one of my big games, right? And you guys are very similar in that with being able to trade loot and whatnot. So many games stay away from that, and I think it adds so much more value not only to what the player finds in the game, but I don't really know how to put my finger on it exactly, but I think it actually does have something to do with those concurrent player numbers, and it's something that brings players back because they know no matter what when they're playing the game that there's really nothing keeping them from reaching the rest of the players that might be ahead of them.
Right.
So yeah, that's cool. So where was I at? So you guys already have a successful game with POE. You guys could have just visually updated it and continued to grow it. Why did you guys choose to make a second game making POE2? And also, why did you choose to support both?
So it's funny because we kind of creeped towards it in a strange way. Initially, the plan literally was, okay, we need to visually update by the
because they want to live. They can't cut POE1.
Thing that was that was the big problem at the time. And effectively, what it is that the rigs for the for the player characters, that's like one of the first things that you'd need to make in a game, right? Because everything, like all the character animations and all the skills, but also all the armors need to be attached to them and all that stuff. Like all that stuff kind of goes on top of that. So once you've done that, it's something that you really can't change without redoing, everything related to characters. And we were like, okay, these rigs are from 2006. The people who made them at the time were very inexperienced.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing. We also, every player character had its own rig, which means that we were doing 7 times the amount of work to support everything that we should have needed to do. And just the overall, there were just so many problems with them. So like, okay, in order to make the graphics of POE1 better, we're going to have to change these rigs. So we make new rigs, and we're like, okay, now we're going to have to re-rig all the armors. But if instead of re-rigging armors, like, surely we should visually update the armors instead of just re-rigging the old ones, right? Because like, obviously, it's like, well, we're doing much work anyway. We might as well just create new items because those will look better and everything will be better than that. And we have to make new animations for everything. So rather than like remaking old skills, I mean, effectively we might as well be making new ones, right? That are cooler and better.
Yeah.
So effectively, it started out there. And at some point we're like, okay, but like the graphics of the starting areas in POE1, we like the first act is like a particularly ugly. We really should like make a new act 1, so to make that look better as well. Because like by the time you've got these great looking characters, but then they're in old environments, like that looks bad. So we really should update that as well. So effectively, like we just kept on like more and more things. Kind of like got added and added as like and effectively
it just turned into a new game.
Yeah, sort of did like that. And so when we even announced Path of Exile 2, we announced it as like, okay, we're going to have 2 campaigns, because at that point we decided to redo the whole campaign. We're going to have 2 campaigns, but it's going to have a shared end game, so that it's like effectively still the same game. And that was kind of what we announced initially in 2019, because at that point we were still in the mindset of like, we're effectively just, this is effectively just a giant expansion to Path of Exile that we're making here. And then even later than that, then at some point, the point when it really split into 2 games was the point when I started wanting to make some much more serious changes to gameplay feel and to balance and so on. I don't think those necessarily were like it came from a specific philosophy that differed from POE1 or anything. It was just that like, in order to make these skills feel good, I feel like I need to make these changes kind of thing. And at some point, we started getting a lot of like, especially from like QA, who are still mostly working on POE1, and like some of the designers who are working exclusively on POE1, we started to just get a lot of like, oh man, you can't really change this. Like it's changed, like because people are used to this and it won't be compatible with what people are doing. Like there was all sorts of, we just started to get a lot of like pushback on things where like, okay, it's going to break the game if you make this change. It's going to break the game if you make that change due to existing stuff, and like just various things like that. Just like lots of concern about that from inside the team. And so I started thinking about it, and I kind of just thought like, you know what, like at this point, we're effectively remaking everything. We might as well just go all the way and actually split the games apart from each other.
Yeah, break away.
And then as soon as we did that, it immediately was very freeing, because we could suddenly make a whole bunch of decisions that I guess we would have been
limited.
Like as I said, that were hard to make just because of a lot of pushback within the studio about things. And like those people, it's like, well, if it's a different game, it's like a whole different question, right? We don't have to worry about all the stuff from the past. We can make a lot of changes, and that's sort of how we ended up with that. But I mean, at the same time, there was also this idea that like we did need to make Path of Exile, in order to really make Path of Exile grow to sort of a much larger audience. We really did have to, like, there are a lot of people who have tried Path of Exile in the past who effectively, like
me
fell off it for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't like the combat, or maybe it was too complex, or maybe they didn't like this, that, or the other thing.
6 years straight, I've tried the game and quit.
Yeah. So it's effectively by putting a line in the sand and saying, okay, we're making a sequel now. It effectively means all those people who tried it before and maybe didn't like it are like, okay, well maybe I'll give this another shot now, because you were saying that you have made a substantially different game here, which obviously we have. So
that was the game-changing decision right there. You're right.
To come back and give it another shot. I think that is another important element of making a sequel like that. But yeah, I was just saying that's kind of how we ended up where we are.
Oh, okay, well that's good. All right. So on that, actually, because there's we're gonna get into some POE2 questions here now, but from my perspective, I got some time playing the game. I'm a big ARPG fan. I grew up playing Diablo 2.
You didn't answer the POE1 thing
on my mom's computer. She could barely pull me off of it any chance she got, but From my perspective, this game feels like a true evolution in the genre. It's the pacing, the combat, the dodge mechanics. What were you guys trying to accomplish with this? Because it does feel like an evolution. It doesn't play like any other ARPG I've played before.
So it really was an effort to make that combat feel just like just much better. And I think one of the things, so whenever we launch a Path of Exile 1 expansion, it's always very interesting to see what people say outside of the Path of Exile community. Like obviously the Path of Exile community gets all hyped about whatever the next big thing is, but it's very interesting to see other communities, because what you see there is what people, usually the top comment will be like, oh, I tried this, but the combat feels so dated and bad and all that sort of stuff, right? Effectively, like, it's interesting to see what it is that people who don't play PoE dislike about PoE, because that's a very interesting thing to think, okay, this is the stuff that we can potentially improve in order to get it better. And like, I love action games, like I'm just a big action game player. So I just wanted to make something that to me felt like a decent action game. Like I want to kind of be able to have the best of both worlds. I want to be able to feel like an action RPG as far as like all the stats and like, interesting stuff like along the traditional like looter type game.
Build diversity,
but I
all
also
that.
want but I also want you to be able to approach it like an action game, where you've got mechanics that you can dodge, that you can understand, like, you can see everything's got wind up, so you can see like, what's going to hit you. You can learn mechanics of bosses. Like you can effectively, I think if your character is weaker, you can overcome some degree of that in PoE2 with play skill. But then at the same time, if you're if you don't have as much play skill, you also can overcome some of that by getting more stats and doing more grinding. So ideally, we can kind of get the best of both of those worlds. But yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to, I'm an action game fan. I want us to be good on the level of an action game.
Yeah. So actually, this lines up perfectly with this. So one of the things that I noticed actually getting hands-on time with the game was that every encounter that I got into, regardless of whatever character I played or how far I got into the game or how much gear I got or skills or whatever it might be, every single encounter felt meaningful. And it was in a way, and I was talking to some of the other creators at the event, and I said that this doesn't feel like a second monitor game anymore. Because like Path of Exile, Diablo, these are games I got YouTube up on the second monitor, I'm watching something else, and I like it demanded my attention at every given moment. Otherwise,
so
I
true.
very easily could lose, even though it was fighting something that otherwise I could probably overpower. Oddly, it reminds me of Elden Ring in a lot of ways, because it's just that engaging. How did you guys manage to create that kind of feel? Was that the intention, and what kind of impact do you guys think that's going to have on the gameplay overall?
So we really do want to make sure that, especially the first time you play through the campaign, that the combat isn't... And I mean, I think that the word around here that often says we don't want the combat to feel trivialized. Like we want it actually, like as you said, we want it to feel meaningful. And this has been a really big tension point in development a lot of the time, because I guess there's several reasons for that. So one of them is that if you're not expecting that as a player, that is like a very big different game feel.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge deal, right? So, and like that's one of those things that I feel like it's really important that people understand, is that like like you're gonna have to concentrate on the bosses. Like the bosses shouldn't be you just walk up and kill them in 5 seconds. You need to like observe the mechanics and engage with them and like understand them, and like like it might take you a couple of
There's
deaths
no
before
games
you kill
like that
before you kill a boss. That kind of thing. And I think that I think from a designer's perspective as well, you kind of want, like, you put all this effort into designing a boss. Like, you don't want a player to just walk in and be like, oh yeah, I just killed it in 2 seconds. Like nothing you did mattered. You know what I mean? Like on that level, we just want the combat to feel like it matters. But at the same time, you do need a feeling of progression through the game, and you do need to make sure that at some point you get to the point where you feel much more powerful than the content. Now, I think the difference is with PoE 2 versus 1 is that the point where you reach that is a bit later than it was.
We got to come up with a
PoE
Tomb
1.
Lord
The other thing as
meme.
well is that people have so much knowledge of PoE 1 at this point that they can reach that trivialization point very, very quickly right from the start of the game. Like obviously we've added like lots of content over the years and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's kind of gotten to the point now where PoE 1 combat really just doesn't kind of like matter very much overall, unfortunately. So yeah, we were trying to get back to a situation where the combat wasn't trivialized. But then once again, there's a lot of tension, right? Like as we are doing testing on closed betas and so on, you definitely get a cohort of people who are like, oh, effectively, ultimately they're finding the game too hard, right? For their level of concentration that they want to put into it. And so we really have to do a fine line here. And so ideally what we can achieve is that if you are finding something too hard, you can go and grind. You can get a level of power from what you're from the stuff that you look around the world, get more stuff, and sort of come back. And that's like a thing that you can do. But ideally, we're in a situation where the amount of that you do kind of depends on how hard you're finding the content. So ideally, you kind of like do side content to the point where you reach the level of difficulty with the combat that you feel like you need to reach before you're feeling comfortable.
I got
And
you. Okay.
it was actually a realization that we had relatively recently, because there was actually an interesting thing. You mentioned Elden Ring. There's actually an interesting thing I noticed with Elden Ring, which is that if I'm playing Elden Ring and I try to kill a boss and I can't kill it, then what I do is I just go and do
There's
some amount of
a
side
fly
content
on
until I
his
feel powerful
mic.
enough to come back. And that was something that
Holy
Path of
shit, he's
Exile
gonna
2,
eat it.
players in the closed betas were not doing. And I was kind of like, Jesus Christ, it's a fly. Sorry. That was something that Path of Exile 2 players in the closed betas weren't doing. And I was kind of, well, why is this? Like, why is it that people just slam their face against a boss again and again and again in POE2, where in a game like Elden Ring, you'd go off and you'd and you would go do something else. And the thing that I realized is that in Elden Ring, you have a map that invites you to to the idea that there's other stuff out there that you could find, and that there's all sorts of stuff on there, and you kind of realize, oh, you know what, there's other stuff I could be doing if I'm not enjoying this. And Path of Exile 2 initially, the map didn't really kind of bring across any of that. So recently what we decided to do is make sure that on the map there's like icons for all of the like side content and little extra things that we've put around the area, so that when you open that map you kind of feel like, oh, there's so much stuff here that I could be doing. And so then it kind of just reminds you of the fact that if you're having trouble with a boss, you're like, okay, well, you know what, I'm just going to go off and do something else. And if you do that, you will get meaningful upgrades, because we've also made sure that all of that content has interesting like fixed drops, or just like little things that they can do that will give you a meaningful upgrade that will potentially make you stronger to allow you to defeat that boss. So
Oh, shit,
that was something that
flies
we
back.
it's not an obvious connection between how come people are finding bosses frustrating to like being, oh, we need to improve the map, but that ended up, I sort of realized that why is it different between these different games, and I think that was very important. So adding that
Jesus,
actually
it's on his face.
improved the experience, I think, quite a lot.
Yeah.
Jesus,
You get.
what? Just go away.
It's like-
Okay.
Oh man, it's actually it's so crazy that you say that about the map, because the wild
The
thing is I
meta
was thinking
Sager,
about it while
Connie.
I was actually playing the game, because I had gotten to a boss that absolutely handled me, and then part of me was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I can beat this by skill, right? Like I can just pay attention, learn the mechanics, dodge all the mechanics, and do my best not to get hit, and beat the boss that way. And then I opened the map and I saw there was like a bunch of mini bosses that I hadn't even touched yet. And I was like, well, let's go ahead and go around here. I'll probably get some skill gems or some uncut, support gems off of them, be able to build something out, maybe find some better equipment or whatever, and then come back a little bit later. I did that. Sure enough, got better support gems, got better higher end skill gems and some better equipment, came back, handled the boss. It was still tough. I'm not going to say like I didn't have to try anymore. I still had to try. But it felt a little bit more measured, because I was actually dealing enough damage to take it down within a realistic amount of time, right? And
well, I'm really glad to hear that worked, because
Yeah.
that was my thesis for how we were going to fix this problem.
Yeah.
And
Oh, shit, it's
I'm
back
really glad to hear it
again.
worked. But the other thing as well is Jesus Christ, go away.
somebody get a fly swatter.
You're like smelling here or something? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Oh my
When
god.
was the last time you left the office, man?
Oh my god, it's
So
back.
anyway, what was I saying?
Thanks for the
So
follow.
yeah, the other thing as well though is it really did force
Oh
us
my
to
god. Thank you for the
create a
follow.
lot more of that side
You
content throughout the
McDougal.
game as well, and I think that really helped, because having all those like kind of
What
little
is up with this
encounters has just made the
fly?
game feel so much more alive. Like there's just there was tons of cases where we did things like we would so it's funny because so we've got all these.
But did you guys catch that? Like, again, he made reference. Jonathan talked about he saw in Elden Ring how when you opened up the map, it showed all, and it sounds like that was inspiration for the Atlas map, the open world map. But like, it just goes to show you how they're influenced by so many games in the genre, outside of the genre. It's just amazing, and they make it their own. Like, it's just unbelievable how they're just so good at what they do. And that fly What the F is up with that fly?
In the game, there's like tons of them everywhere. But then we also have
The fly was sent by Blizzard.
That, I guess,
oh my God, it's Rod Ferguson,
like,
the fly.
Sort of bosses. I think if you look at a lot of games, you would still consider them to be bosses. But effectively, they're like hard-coded rare monsters that have specific abilities. And a lot of the time, what we've done is we've taken things from like later in the game and moved them earlier to use them as like a boss in that sort of area, things like that. So, for example, I don't know if in the forest you found that that witch in the witch's hut.
Yes.
Was that a thing you found?
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
All right.
That's where
So
I got some like leveled up potions or flasks.
Yeah, exactly. So that witch actually comes from Act 5. That was just one of the regular monsters from Act 5. We took it down. We added this like frost breath ability.
Yeah.
And then like added a little bit of stuff around, like you walk in and there's the cauldron and then she disappears and goes behind you and like a few things like that. And it's like really quickly we were able to create a little encounter like that. And if you're in Act 1, a random Act 5 regular monster feels like a boss to you.
Yeah.
So that's like just like a nice way to just add little bits of kind of like
Hey, I stand alone.
Things like that all over
Fly
the place.
wanted
Just,
to be in the
little
interview.
touches
Yeah,
that, just make the game world feel a lot more alive. And allow us to drop specific items. So yeah, that one, once again, that one's designed to specifically give you potions. But actually, there's another interesting one with that one, which is that I don't know if you found in the previous area there was a little camp with some zombies that drops a skill gem. You might have missed it.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Okay, so basically, so if you miss that one, then the reward that you would have gotten from that one will also drop from the witch in the next area.
Oh, okay, all right.
So effectively, what this means is kind of like a catch-up account where we can effectively say, okay, there's all this random optional stuff around, but if you miss some of it, then we can forward some of those drops on to a later point, so that we can still sort of make sure that you, at the beginning
So
you
we
sort of have a reasonable. Like we want to try. What we're trying to do there is we're trying to make sure that the bottom of the people who are the most unlucky effectively still have a reasonable experience.
So in the lower levels, should we rush? Since it sounds like
Thanks for the follow.
thanks for the follows, guys. Thank you. It sounds like they don't want us to miss stuff. So if we don't get it in one area, they're kind of moving the potential of it to drop in the next area. So do we kind of not have to explore, let's say, the first 10, 15 levels?
That's the kind of thing that we can do to. There's like little tricks like that we can do to make that more interesting.
That's incredibly smart, and it worked. So
It is smart.
there you go. I'm happy your plan worked there. So actually, along with like missing content and stuff like that, I am the quintessential new player for Path of Exile. I've tried the game like 6 times over the last 6 years. I fell off every single time. It wasn't until Settlers of Kalgur that finally got me, mostly because I could respec using gold.
Right.
That's really what it was. I couldn't tell you how many times I had bricked a character because I couldn't figure out how to build. I get like to the end of the campaign or near the end of the campaign and just get smashed. You guys have made a lot of changes that have made the game far more accessible. It's obvious that you're trying to aim this towards newer players. How do you guys manage to balance something that is going to be good for new players while still keeping the game the same for those hardcore players that they've come to love for Path of Exile?
Yeah, you're right. You could rush, but you don't have to, and I'm probably not going to. I mentioned earlier that you only get one first playthrough, and I want to enjoy it. That's my intent going into it. Hopefully, I don't let the emotions get the best of me, and try to keep up with the Joneses and push harder. I really do want to explore everything and take my time. That's kind of like my intent going in. Welcome, by the way.
Yeah, so it really comes down to trying to remove what's called incidental complexity. So effectively, you have what you might call necessary complexity, which is effectively in order to get the depth that you want, there's a certain amount of complexity you need to be able to make the system work at all. But then also you have incidental complexity, which is effectively things that are complicated where simplifying them doesn't change the depth of the system at all. And a great example of that is the way that skill gems work, where previously skill gems were on items. It meant that every time you upgraded an item, you had to worry about your skill gems. That didn't change anything about the options that you had for how to combine skill gems or anything like that. So effectively, I would class that as incidental complexity because it's something that made the game more complicated, but it didn't change anything about what you could actually achieve in the system in terms of like how you like what the ultimate way that the combos you can do, anything about how you build a character. All it did was just get in the way. So effectively what we're trying to do is just remove all that stuff that's getting in the way, that's not making the game deeper, while keeping all the stuff that is necessary to make the game interesting and have interesting depth. So if we can do that, then I think that we will have something which new players are going to find a lot more friendly. So yeah, like the skill system being a great example. I mean, things like making respecs easier and gold and stuff like that, like that stuff all really helps. There's just a lot of these things, and really, like what we were doing before, some of that stuff just wasn't really necessary.
Yeah.
It was not improving the game to do it that way. So the answer there is effectively, I believe that you can have it both ways, but at the same time, like I never want to make a decision that's going to make the game less deep. And it's very interesting because like obviously that can be something that
What a great comment that was. Wow.
Can mean different things to different people. So like here's an interesting one that was like a one recently that we changed, which was that we changed from 5 flasks down to from having 5 flask slots that you could do whatever you wanted with, to having just a life slot and a mana flask slot. And
getting rid of the piano keys.
Yeah, exactly. So you could look at that. Obviously, we're trying to solve a real problem because that one actually came out of the fact that whenever I was actually watching new players play, the thing that they would screw up the most was using flasks. Like they would press the wrong button, they'd do one that was empty. There was all sorts of stuff that they'd be doing there that that just wasn't that was causing them to die. And I was like, at the same time, you've also got the whole flask piano thing, which is like,
annoying.
Not great. And but the thing is, when we first said, okay, well, what if we just had 1 mana and one life slot? The first reaction to that is, oh, you're simplifying the game, you're dumbing it down, this kind of thing. Like this is something that we have to be worried about. So then it's like, okay, well, how can we have a system where we can bring back some of the interesting build choices that you felt like you had before, while not bringing back all of the annoying garbage that people had to do and like all the stuff that was making new players fail.
The physical actually having to use the potions part.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when we thought about, okay, well, what do people really want the variability of their flasks to be able to achieve? And the answer is they want solutions to things like getting frozen.
Yeah, this
and,
is
like,
kind of
fire
stuff that we...
and like there are different choices now about like
Sorry,
what
guys.
am I prioritizing here, about what I want in that flask. So
and I think that's really smart. That's smart. I like that a lot. So as another one of my like new player things is that when I always came back in to try Path of Exile again, obviously every single time it was around a new league mechanic. Mm-hmm. And this last time that I got through, the Sellers of Kalgur was very easy to kind of get used to. It's something similar you've seen in a lot of other games and whatnot, so it was pretty familiar to me.
Great mechanic.
But when I actually finally got to the end game for the first time, got to maps and everything like that, I was yet again lost, and my only my only solution was like 2 or 3 hour guides from Zizrain or somebody like that. And I'm like, it's not really what I wanted to do. I try to play games as blind as I can. And I was wondering, when it comes to the end game, do you guys have any
yeah, that's right, Chris.
Do you guys have any plans to maybe nudge new players into the direction of maybe end game solutions that are best for them? Or are there ways for players to be able to discover that?
So I think that the end game, just the core system in POE2 is a bit more understandable and discoverable. And the way you can kind of see, we've got the map that sort of shows you what you can find, and so it really feels like you get more of a sense of discovery, and you kind of slowly get introduced to the different mechanics. Like you're going to start finding those sort of extra league mechanics. Like you're going to see them on the map before you get to them. You're going to be like, oh, what's this? You go there, you try it out, this kind of thing. Like you're not just going to randomly run into like 10 different weird mechanics that you've never heard of, like right from the get-go. So effectively that allows us to kind of more slowly introduce those things. And all of those things, I think, have a much more considered ramp about how you get into them and how they go forward. We can effectively make sure that there's tutorialization for them at the point where you encounter them for the first time. There's just a lot more that we can do around that. So I think the system itself is just a bit more amenable to making that ramp into the end game a little bit easier. But ultimately the end game is where the complexity does start to ramp up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that is something that is definitely just going to be the case. That's where you start to because like especially as we
You're gonna
add more
have
and
to
more
buckle
content
up,
to it,
guys.
that's where you're going to start to get all of these things sort of coming in. But as I said, there's a bit more of a consideration to just like how the ramp up works. Like I think the other thing as well is that if you just want to concentrate on one mechanic as well, that's something that you can do very easily in POE2. You can do that in POE1 as well.
Yeah.
But like the way that you do that, I think, is a little bit more obvious in POE2 as well, with the way we've got the tablets and the towers and stuff like that. Like I
All
think
right,
that
let's get into
the notion.
So Path
Live
of Exile
service.
seasons have always seen a lot of players come back. It seems that it's always an actual event, momentous occasion. There's a ton of people that file in. You got a bunch of people streaming it on Twitch. What do you guys think is the key to maintaining that long-term engagement that you guys see with Path of Exile?
So I think there's a few elements. So one of them is the thing that I already mentioned before about
They're already
the
doing
full
it.
economic reset being really important. But the next one is that our just general view on maintaining a game, and I think this is something that the industry is more generally coming towards now, but only in the more recent years, is coming to the understanding that you don't want to keep players around forever. You want to give players a good experience that they're going to enjoy for, like a few weeks, a month, maybe 6 weeks, something like that, like some amount of time that's like bounded. And then you're happy to see them go to play other things, and then they, not in the knowledge that they're going to come back again later. Like you don't have to hang on to players forever, and I think that mindset is something we've had for quite a long time, and it's something that just I think just much better for the long term. Like there was a period when the MMOs were big where it's like everyone was trying to like hang on to players for the longest amount of time. They were all subscription models, so it was like the interest was keeping people around forever. And
Yeah, this
think
is
we
a
all
good
take a
interview,
while.
Dennis.
Hey,
Azamari.
It takes a while for that mindset to kind of go away. And it's sort of very interesting to see as well that, and this is kind of a weird, maybe a weird connection, but in the mobile world, for some reason, I feel like they still treat players very much this way, that it's all about, they want to try and keep players forever. And as I said, I think that it's kind of something that is ultimately self-defeating because players will just burn out. Like you really would much rather give them a satisfying experience than like, okay, you know what, I'm done with this, but I'm going to come back again later. So I mean, that's like one really important thing I think for sure.
So do you guys think that your monetization has something to do with that? Because like you guys have a very like player first approach to your monetization.
Great question.
You guys are, I mean, especially in the like free to play realm, you guys are, a
That's
rare
a
breed, to say
great
the least.
question.
How much of an impact do you think that has?
This guy
on it?
asks good questions.
I mean, I definitely think that comes a lot to sort of player trust, like by not being aggressive with monetization, by making sure that we, everyone, what we do feels fair. I think that it just means that, players trust us and they're much more likely to spend money just on the idea that, I'm supporting the game that I'm enjoying playing. Look, I'm sure there are things that we could do that would like juice our monetization significantly beyond what we're doing now. But we wouldn't enjoy doing those things. And I think that'd ultimately be self-defeating.
What an effing concept.
It's much better to just do what we do. And honestly, like, monetization is something that like it's not our first thought when we're coming to design things. Like our first thought is about designing the game, and then monetization really is like, okay, like obviously we want to make some cool stuff there, but it's like really the first thing is like first make a good game, and then if the game is good enough, the hope
You're
is
gonna
that
make me
players will
cry.
then want to support you.
Exactly.
The hope is that players will want to support you
Yeah.
in what you're doing.
Here,
So
here.
yeah, I mean that's kind of always been our view on it. And it's funny, even at the start. So we started the game in 2006. Like working on it, and at that time free to play was really not a thing in the Western world, and the reason why we chose that is because we kind of thought, well, we're not some big studio, we're just some random dudes in New Zealand,
They were
if we-
scared to
I don't think we
charge,
can even get people
probably.
to buy our game, and like how would we even distribute it, and like all this stuff. Like we were like we couldn't even do this, so free to play felt like a way for us to be able to actually get an
Get in.
audience.
Yeah.
But then the only examples that we had were all of the pay to win things that were going on in Asia at the time. So we were like, well, obviously
at the
nobody
time.
in the yeah, we were like nobody in the West would
Yeah.
ever accept anything that was pay to win. Clearly,
Yeah.
right? That's clearly not okay. It's kind of what we were thinking about at the time. So we were like, well, so obviously we need to do all of this cosmetic stuff that we do. So that was kind of like our thinking back then. And it's funny because it turned out that actually Western gamers will accept pay to win in a lot of cases. There are like a bunch of pay to win games that are successful in the West after all.
Yeah.
But our whole thesis at the time was like, nobody would accept this. I mean, we wouldn't accept it, right? As players, like that's what we were thinking. So therefore, that was the monetization model that we picked. Yeah, that was our thinking.
I think that in a lot of ways that the player first approach, not going the pay to win approach and things like that you've seen with many other games, well, there have been some successful ones that are out there. I think especially recently, I'm not going to name any names or anything like that, but there's a lot of live service games that have come out that did lean on those pay to win systems, or they were a little bit too aggressive with their monetization. Maybe it's they monetize too
We're not
going to
name names here.
They price things too high or whatever it might be. Especially when there's games that are like parallels of each other, right? You'll have two games that are basically like the same thing, but one is, way more expensive to play than the other one. I think that it builds a lot of customer loyalty more than anything else. And how do you think that loyalty really plays into the longevity of?
I agree with what Legendary Drops said right there, but you also have to earn that trust. You know what I mean? Like it's grinding gear games earns the trust of the player base. And it's not just because of the fact that the game is free to play and that they put the game first, but grinding gear games earns the trust as well. That's a big one too. I could never guess who might be saying those things. Internal greed, wink, wink.
Your game, because
no naming of names.
I've seen a lot of these games basically come out and then fizzle out really quickly because of their monetization.
I mean, it absolutely does factor into it. Like, no doubt that it does. But I mean, you still at the end of the day have to make a good product, right? Like the gameplay itself is king. Yeah. And I would say that the main thing you don't want is the monetization to be getting in the way of that. And monetization really can do that because the moment that you monetize something, the game designers are influenced by the existence of that thing. Like if you're selling a certain thing, even if you don't even realize that you're doing it, you're going to be making game design decisions around making it so that people actually, buy it.
I stand alone.
Battle
Absolutely.
passes are probably the best example of that, where they they're curbing all of the gameplay around how you progress a battle pass and things like that.
Right. So
around how you passes are probably the best example
that people actually
battle passes.
I think battle passes are probably the best example of that, where they they're curbing all of the gameplay around how you progress a battle pass and things like that.
Right. So that's why you've got to be so.
You notice, I this is how cool these MFers are. Do you notice every time something that's brought up to that other game, battle passes, right? So about the game. Obviously, there's a lot of games that have battle passes in them, but this is from a developer that's in the ARPG space. So, you tend to think about your competition in that space, right? So he brought up Legendary Drops brought up battle passes, which to me is a direct link to, that game. And Jonathan is like, yeah, sure. They don't even want to go there. They don't want to talk about it. They go out of their way not to even talk, not on purpose. It's just the way they're built, I think. Anyway, it's just me rambling right now.
Monetize because it will affect what you do with other things, and I think that's almost inevitable to an extent that it is so dangerous to do that stuff because it just affects you so much. And I actually think there's a thing that in my mind is connected. By the way, here that
Panda Corgi, what typo? What did I misspell?
A lot of live service games will have play this weekend and get double drops, and play this weekend and get 2 times experience, and this kind of stuff like that. Like that stuff, I think, really undermines the integrity of the game very significantly in the long term. Like that stuff, I think, really undermines the integrity. Will have like, oh, like play this weekend and get double drops, and play this weekend and get 2 times experience. This kind of like stuff like that. Like that stuff, I think, really undermines the integrity of the game very significantly in the long term. Like that stuff, like sure, that weekend a bunch of people will turn up, but then I feel like then you're like when you don't have that,
Is that
now
what
you're
I
much less
typed?
likely to play. And so then you get into this death spiral of like, okay, well the only time people turn up is when you start turning on double experience weekends. And so it's like now that's what the game is, and it's like you've kind of compromised the whole thing. So it's like even just that like stuff that's not even really to do with monetization. Even it's just like another thing where it's like it's an outside element outside of the gameplay.
You're using marketing to push gameplay.
Yeah, that shouldn't be there, and I really hate that stuff. And like, I mean, you like people will all the time suggest this kind of stuff, right? Like, and you get this with like third-party publishers as well, where it's like you'll be publishing in a market, and they're like, oh, we want to be able to run an event where blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, we just will not do it. Like in the long term, it just breaks things. Like, and they'll say, look, when we do it in this game, we get so much more players, and it's like, well, yeah. You do that weekend, but you know, like it's just not good in the long term. So we never do that stuff, and I think that it's once again another one of those things that in the long term I think is much better for the health of the game.
I think that like generosity
Totally
is always a good
agree.
thing to have in games, and maybe it's not like double XP weekends or anything like that, because obviously I wholeheartedly agree with you that it has a negative impact more than a positive impact in a lot of cases. You know, I brought up like Warframe like earlier. Every single day you log into Warframe, there's a reward that you get, no matter I think how long you play the game, and sometimes that reward could be like a 75% off of the you know, premium currency for the game or something like that. So players always feel rewarded for logging in all the time. So you know, I think there's different ways to go about it, but yeah, for sure that's. It's definitely not the way. You know, one thing that I definitely wanted to make sure to bring up as well is, I'll be real, the carrying over all microtransactions from POE1 to POE2 is unheard of.
Yep.
It is, most companies would probably see this as an opportunity to be able to double dip, to be able to, you know, have their existing audience pay for all new things all over again, start over fresh. In an entirely different microtransaction ecosystem. What was your guys' motivation to, you know, what a lot of companies would probably look at as throw away all that money?
So I think there's like 3 or maybe even 4 sort of things going on here. So one of them is having started from a position of this is an expansion to Path of Exile 1 certainly was part of the part of the initial sort of thinking there. But the other thing as well is that okay, so let's think about sequels to live service games that have existed. Now, every time that people have done sequels to live service games, and there's not like that many of them.
No.
A lot of the time, the sequels end up doing worse than the original game, and you have to go back a little bit for some of these. But effectively, like it's not always the case that the sequels do better. But what had been the case before for all the sequels to live service games was that the original game effectively took a back seat and no longer received any development and effectively, you know, was dead. And we're like, well, why do that, right? Like, why do that when we have something that there is an audience for that people love?
You're playing it today, right?
So I'm like, right. So I'm like, okay, well, in order, like, when you're a game designer, you think a lot in terms of incentives.
There's
right?
no
Like, okay,
chance of that
it's like
happening,
just,
Jason.
as a general mindset, as a game designer, you're like, okay, because every time you design anything, you're like, okay, what are the incentives for the player? I'm also thinking about like what are the incentives that we as a company will have, depending on how we structure this. So I'm like, okay, if we make sure that the microtransactions span across both games, that means that as a company, we will have an incentive to make sure that Path of Exile 1 continues to receive content, because we will still be getting monetization from that. Because the feeling that players will have is that POE1 is still getting, because POE1 will still be getting monetization because of the fact that all that stuff goes back as well as forwards. That means that we'll always be incentivized to support it. So effectively, I wanted to like build into what the company is doing, a way to incentivize us to do the right thing here. And so that's like part of the reason why we did it that way. But there's one other point as well I want to make, which is that when you do run a live service game, you kind of realize that like the stuff that's selling is the new stuff. And I don't think that like reselling a bunch of stuff from the past to everyone again is necessarily even going to make that much money anyway. It's like, sure, I mean, there's stash tabs and stuff, and that would have been like a short-term injection of cash probably if we'd done that. But really, in the long term, there's two things that are going to give us more money.
It's going to
One of
be
them
more
is,
harm than good.
getting new players. And those new players won't have paid us any money before, so they've got nothing to carry over. And the second thing is, keeping people interested in playing the game over and over again through all the different leagues, and thus, buying supporter packs through each of those times as well. And people having all their old stuff carry over really doesn't matter for those things, right? Like if our goal is long-term success of POE2 and 1, then it really, we can make this, and I don't think it should really hurt us at all in the long term. So I think just like for several reasons, it was the right move to do, and obviously players, are very happy about it as well. It makes the people who played the game before feel valued, and we're not just going to throw their stuff in the garbage whenever we decide to do something new, which I think is very important. There's that feeling of like we actually care about all of that stuff that we sold you before. So I think that all of that stuff combined really does just make for, to me, a no-brainer decision. So this wasn't a difficult decision at all. It was something that was very obvious to us right from the point when we decided to make POE2, and so I guess that's the sort of our thinking behind it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. My stash tabs, thank you, by the way. But
If they would have not done that, it would have been a penny wise, pound foolish mistake in my mind. Jonathan's absolutely right. They're going to get way more out of it by doing it how. First of all, everybody loves the fact that they did it. So again, increasing how much more people love them and how much more they trust them. And in turn, they're going to get it back.
Thanks for the follow.
They're going to get it back later on. Thank you for the follow, RGXTC. Thank you. So absolutely, like Jonathan said, it wasn't even a question. That's the right thing to do. And again, another reason why they're where they are.
It's an interesting direction to take, but I wholeheartedly agree with you that it seems like a no-brainer decision to just go ahead and transfer things between the two, because
yeah, exactly, Mr. Cove. Either have I. I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have given another second thought about having to buy stash tabs in POE2. It's a new game. I gotta buy the tabs. I totally agree with you. They're supporting both games. So, okay, I'm playing POE1. I bought the tabs there. That's where they stay. POE2, standalone, new game. Yeah, I wouldn't have given it a second
I think
thought.
in a lot of cases for like the existing POE audience, you're going to have people that are going to play both.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to go back and forth between the two of them, and they're going to spend money on both of them.
Sure.
And again, I think this kind of goes back into this like conversation of like, when you treat players like that, when you make things so accessible, when you don't make a situation where it looks like you're just trying to take money from them at every given turn, I think it builds a relationship in which they don't feel like they need to spend money. They feel like they want to. Like they want to support you. And I think that's something that's really important. This ties into like a conversation. This is more of like a philosophical thing on my part, but over the last couple of years, I've noticed that there's been a trend lately where I think that a lot of companies are trying to either strike a balance or try to trend in the direction of like younger audiences and different, people like to say the mythical modern audience or something like that. And, one of the things that I've noticed is that like great games just seem to land well. Right? Like Elden Ring is a game that's played by ages probably 13 to like, I don't know, probably folks in their 70s have played Elden Ring. Like it really does cover that massive group of people. And I think that in a lot of cases, the industry is kind of losing sight of how like older players are not aging out of video games like they would in other industries. So like they feel like they have to target their games towards something else. And I noticed like the first thing that caught me off guard was when I logged into Path of Exile, and the first thing that happens is all of the other characters get hung. So it's like it's not a game that immediately wants to treat you like a child. Like it has its tone, it knows what its universe is and what its themes are. How do you think you strike that middle ground, or do you think it's necessary to strike a middle ground with an audience?
Well, at the end of the day, what we're doing is making a game that we enjoy, right? Like we're making
Yeah.
a game that we think is cool. And I think the danger really comes when you try to make a game for an audience that you're not part of. Like I think that's where you start to make things that appeal to nobody. You know, because you probably the people you're trying to make a game for that aren't you feel patronized by whatever it is you're doing.
Wow.
And
There's a lot of examples of that.
yeah, and you don't, and also
Wow.
you don't, you know, once again, you just
Could I love this guy anymore? What a fucking response.
don't know what it is they want. Like the only person that I know, like the person I know the most, what they want is myself, right?
Yeah.
Like I know exactly what I'm looking for in a game, and so and also like a lot of the people on the team as well. Like like the people on the development team really need to like what it is they're making. So, as I said, we're making a game for ourselves primarily, and I think if we do that, then we
He's
will
a
find an audience of
baller,
people
Ryder.
who are like
He's a
us,
baller,
who
man.
enjoy this kind of thing. And yeah, we do enjoy, like darker themes and like doing, like fun stuff. Like just honestly, it's just really fun to do this stuff. The most fun that our artists have are when they're like making things that are more extreme. Like you probably, I guess you probably didn't. Oh no, we did. We show you in that presentation
Yeah.
the black chambers that has all the crazy body horror stuff, and it's like they had so much fun.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, what do we get this guy? Just like pull his intestines around a crate, like
Yeah.
around a gear train, like like stuff like that. They're just like and like slicing the guy in half vertically. So you can
the
see
minute the minute I saw
yeah.
like the cheese grater machine, I was like, thank God.
So it's like there's a smile on the artist's face when they're designing stuff like that. So it's like and if they're enjoying it, then the players will enjoy it. So like I think that's really what it comes down to. Just target yourself, like make stuff that you think is cool, and then so long as there's enough other people like you out there, then you'll get a big audience.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. These are we're into the bonus round here. Here we go.
So I can translate that into street talk. We're going to make the fuck whatever we want and like, that we like. And if you like it, come and hang. If you don't, keep a walking. That's the street version.
Path of Exile. Oh, this is a really good one. So obviously, long-standing game. There's a lot of narrative and story elements from Path of Exile 1. A lot of world building that's very pivotal to this game. It's picking up off of the events of Path of Exile, obviously. How do you guys approach storytelling and in a way to keep players invested, but also, with Path of Exile 2 coming out, how are you guys going to, onboard those new players that maybe won't go play Path of Exile 1?
So as a starting point, like you really can play through POE2 and understand the story without knowing anything about POE1. Like it is the same world. There are going to be some characters who repeat, that kind of thing. Like if you played POE1, there's a lot of stuff there for you. But we do have to make sure that the story feels engaging to someone who just didn't experience it before. I think one of the things that's really interesting with storytelling in an action RPG is that you have to be really careful not to be overbearing. Like there are cases where like we expect people to play through the game lots of times, right? And so like if you have a lot of like so the quintessential thing that a lot of games do, most games do, is they'll detach the camera from the play, from the play position,
Yeah.
and they'll like do things like you talk to an NPC and it comes down and you've got stuff like that, right? And I think for a game that you play through one time, that stuff is very effective and works well, and it does help with engagement in the story, and like that's a good thing. But the moment that you do that, when you've got a campaign that you want people to be able to like run through quickly, just taking the camera away from where it is and putting it somewhere else immediately makes it feel like a chore to engage with all of those NPCs and everything. Like in POE 1, if you want to, you can burn through like all of that story and quest stuff like very, very easily. And so we're kind of trying to make sure that in POE 2, like we had this sort of difficult challenge of like, we want people to care about the story more than they did in POE 1, but we also don't want to have that feeling of like, oh, you like made the campaign this annoying process to have to go through.
Yeah, that's difficult,
I think that
man.
is something that some of the games have run into, and so then they start to think, oh, we need ways to skip it, and like it drives all of that stuff, right? Like we want we want to try and do both. So I think that what we've really tried to do is to add more of that story stuff through the campaign in ways that are both not annoying but do sort of allow you to experience stuff without having to stop your gameplay. So you've got things like as you're walking through areas, like sometimes.
Whoa. Yeah, Hugh McDougall. Like, you know, I have to say, sometimes it's embarrassing. Like after I say something, and I'll play the video because we've been watching a lot of POE2 content the last 3-4 days here. And I have to say, I'll say something and then I'm like, holy shit. Like I'll say it in my inner voice, right? Like, holy shit, Sammy, you are like fucking drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's how I feel. It makes you like, how can you not applaud these people? They're just, everything they say, how they market, how they act, the game, it makes you look like a freaking fanboy, but that's how I feel, and it's the truth. So I totally relate with what you just said. It's super impressive stuff. Now, come December 6th, we're actually going to get to play the game, and that's when the rubber hits the road. And that's when shit is. So if I had a little bit of concern, it's very rare that live reveals go like exceptional. They can go really bad, they can go bad, they can go meh, they can go kind of good. But can you guys remember the last time you saw a reveal for an up-and-coming release, an up-and-coming expansion, DLC, whatever, that just hit fucking grand slam? Grinding Gear Games reveal was a grand slam. And my only little fear is the bar has been raised, and the expectation has been raised so high. Like, so that's going to be going into December 6th. So I'm very curious to see how Grinding Gear Games is going to manage expectations and how the players react on December 6th. But anyway, that's my only little like, oh shit, man. They knocked it out of the park on the reveal, so people are expecting it to be impressive. But I personally think it is. They're going to deliver. But who knows, right? We won't know. December 6th is fight night. Sorry, Chad. The auto mod held it. I can't read it. It's not fight night. It's December 6th is blank or fight day. Oh, it's effed or fight day. Got it. We're either going to be in love or in hate. Ooh, okay. I get it. I hear you. Could be a steep learning curve. I don't think so, Draconic. I don't think so. I think Grinding Gear Games, again, it's my take. We won't know until we're in the game, but I think Grinding Gear Games did a good job in game to, lower the barrier of entry. But again, maybe you're right. Maybe it still will be steep. Jonathan said, I don't know if he said it in this interview or the Try interview. He said that obviously the complexity is going to amp up in the end game, So you're going to have to keep up in the end game. I think the skill system can be super deep and complex and fun. Yeah, there's a recommended skill button that can help new players decide.
Play as you as you run through and stuff like that. We've also made the more, I guess, like animated story moments that you sort of get to experience without actually having to stop running around. Like you've got things like boss intros and things like that. Like you get a moment to like.
It does look like they're making more of an effort with the cinematics and with the story, more so than Path of Exile 1.
Tell a bit of a story as the bosses coming out, with a few lines of dialogue that can really
hope the fire servers don't go on fire.
Idea, without kind of getting in your way. So I guess that's the sort of main thing. And I think one of the games that inspires me the most, and strangely enough in this regard, is Half-Life, where they always made sure to never break the character's ability like you've got one perspective through the entire game, right?
Yeah.
Like there's never a moment where like where you have a cutscene or you fade out and fade in and do something else. Like, and I agree with that thing wholeheartedly. Like the moment you do that, you feel like you lose control and you feel like it's a game telling you something rather than you playing something. So I actually am a big believer in like keeping the character's perspective the entire time. So that being said, we do have a few things.
Yeah, Chad, I agree.
There's an intro cinematic that you guys got to see.
It was very good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to create, by the way. And there's even a couple more things like that later on in the campaign as well.
Very cool.
Which we'll be doing. So yeah, I think that the story stuff is a lot better in POE2 than it was in POE1. But we still, as I said, have to maintain that idea of like, don't get in the way, don't be annoying.
Yeah, don't bog us
if you know
down,
what
man.
You're doing, don't make you have to do annoying steps. Like actually, here's another random example about this kind of stuff where like there's this idea in where we have to consider both what the character knows but also what the player knows. So in our storyline, unlike a lot of games, if you know as a player where something is before someone has told you about it, then we will allow you to go and do that quest before you know about the quest and that kind of stuff. And like we're generally pretty consistent with the idea that like that you don't have to just talk to an NPC just to find something out that the player already knew. Like that's really important. Like you don't just, like, you know like if you can always like you have to go to an NPC if you have to like turn in a quest item because they need to like make something for you or do something like that. But if you already know exactly how something works, there is no requirement for you to talk to an NPC just to find that out. And once again, I think that's a bit unusual as far as games go because most story games kind of like the character has to know about something before you're allowed to do it. Whereas in a lot of cases, but here it's like it's very important to us that if you know what the campaign is and you've done the storyline a million times, you just go straight there, you just do the thing, and it's very there's nothing in your way.
Are there instances?
Valrudo, PO1, you're the second person that's mentioned the Path of Exile servers going down tonight. Interesting. Maybe they are prepping. Sammy, do you remember me telling you about that in POE1? You don't have to talk to NPCs to get quests. You just go do the item and turn them in. Wow, Chad. Fuck. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
In which you could actually go and like take down like a boss that might be a part of a quest before the quest is actually taken.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens all the time. So we do in some cases have blockages and things that like, but when we do that, it's like
look that I have.
You have to get from something and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are blockages along the way that are mandatory.
Yeah, you were right, Chad.
Generally speaking, you can ignore the NPCs for everything except having to turn in quest items, and then you'll still be able to complete everything just fine.
That's cool.
And go through everything just fine.
Yeah, I like that because like the idea is this kind of goes back to one of our earlier discussions, but it's the idea of
word for word
the ability to trivialize the game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like and that's something that players like. Who knew? Players like to earn things in games, including skill and reputation and items and whatnot. But I think that there's something really special in that where for these more experienced players, once you've run through the campaign a couple of times, now all of a sudden I don't need to talk to these people. I can go grab this. I can go kill this. I can do this. I can come back and then take the quest and turn everything in and then go back to doing what I was doing.
Sure.
That's very cool. I like that a lot. So just in general with obviously with POE, you guys have POE2, you guys have done a lot of new things. You guys have added a lot of new things. How much freedom do you guys give your team to experiment with new ideas, and how do you guys decide what features are making
Good question.
into these games?
I think I know the answer.
So it is honestly a mix, but I guess one of the things I like to do as a manager generally is that if someone suggests something and I've got an idea as well, then if those things are of equal weight, like if I don't have a reason particularly to prioritize one or the other, I'll always go with what the team wants to do over what I would prefer to do. I think that's just important because it means that the team just feels a lot more ownership over what the game is, and they feel like that their ideas are actually getting in, and they feel like what they come up with kind of gets into the final product. So like it's interesting being a game director because you've kind of got this mix of tyranny but also democracy in terms of like you obviously have to make sure that the game is going in the direction, like I'm not going to do anything in the game that is something that I wouldn't like, but at the same time if I'm ambivalent towards something but another team member is really passionate about it, then it's absolutely something that I think that they should be allowed to do because it'll make them much happier. And I think also the passion of the person making the product shows through a lot in the final result.
Yeah, Hugh. This guy's putting on a leadership clinic. Big time. This could be on TED Talks.
So yeah, I always want to err on that side. But the main thing, of course, that I'm here to say is like, you know what? But if I am like, no, I don't like this, I really have to just be tyrannical and say, this can't go in the game because I don't. I really have to, on some level, have some kind of cohesion around the whole vision of the thing.
Yeah.
You really don't want it to turn into some kind of design by committee product either. So yeah, it is a bit of a tough balance, but ultimately, yeah, I would hope that the team feels like ideas they come up with have a good shot to go in. And generally speaking, I'm fairly fine with whatever ideas they come up with going. And so long as there's something that I don't think is making the game worse, I'm like, yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah.
You can. Let's go with that. Let's come up. Let's do this crazy boss. Let's do whatever crazy monster you came up with.
Yeah, I like that, especially with the boss design and stuff like that. I think that like when I was playing the build of POE2 that I was playing, like the boss design is something. It's wild how much you guys have evolved it since your last game, or just in general, just for the genre. It's just so cool. Sure. Which actually it brings me to one final question that I have, and this is something that was kind of brought up when we were at the event. I just want to say that I appreciate the genius of this. But the idea that you guys are going to be releasing the first 3 acts and then you are going straight into the end game because you guys want to make sure that in early access, the end game is what is getting played. The end game is what's being tested. What's the motivation behind that? Like I feel like obviously part of it is somewhat a no-brainer because POE is its end game in a lot of cases. These games are their end game in a lot of cases. But what are you guys looking to accomplish for it, and what was the what was the mindset making such a intelligent decision?
So it's funny because you say it's a no-brainer, but it surprisingly took us a while to realize that that's what we needed to do. And strangely enough, it actually happened. Like we changed direction completely to this when we were when we did the announcement for Settlers of Calgar. And so what happened was, so like we obviously had a bunch of in-game plans. We had a design for what the in-game would be, but we did the Settlers of Calgar announcement, and that announcement was really huge. And
it's so good.
On the
by
same
the way.
day, on the same day as that announcement occurred, there was also a Diablo 4 announcement where they announced, I think it was a class they were announcing, and
a class.
Everyone was saying, like, oh, Blizzard's making this expansion and it costs like $60 or whatever it costs, and the amount of and the content they're making is like not even as large as this random POE1 expansion that's coming out. You know what I mean? Like there was all this sort of stuff like that. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, well, so first of all, like making a class is actually like a way larger amount of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
Than making Settlers of Calgar was. Like honestly, when you actually compare the two in terms of the amount of work that goes into it, one of them is a lot easier. But then I was talking to Mark about this, and Mark was like, well, yeah, but
Do you see the difference there? Do you see the difference? He's actually defending that comment and in essence making and defending Blizzard in one way. You see the effing difference?
So maybe they should be making more of the type of content like what we're making. And I was like,
this is crazy.
Well, you're not wrong about that. Like, okay, just because something takes more work doesn't necessarily mean that like that's the right thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, hang on, are we making the same mistake with POE2? Like we were barreling forward thinking like
are we making the same
campaign before we
like
can
them?
work on all this endgame stuff. And then I was like, well, hang on, like why are we making all this content that's really hard to make when we could be making content that's honestly easier to make, and probably the players will get a lot more satisfaction out of it. Like there'll be a lot more actual gameplay that comes. It's like because like when you're making a game like ours, it's like you've got this phase where you make you have to make a bunch of art, you have to make a bunch of animation and like all this sort of stuff, and then there's the phase where like you get to like do a bunch of remixes and reuse and like all that stuff, and like an in game typically is where all that sort of stuff happens. And like that stuff is honestly easier to do than making it in the first place. And yet the amount of actual value that a player gets out of that is like in a lot of ways higher.
Much higher.
So we effectively were just like, you know what? Like why are we not just stopping? Like we need to just drop everything. We were like towards the end of making to finishing Act 4. And we were like, you know what? Let's just drop everything that we're doing. we'd already done a pass through the game, by the way, so like a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff's already done. But like we were like doing the polish work on Act 4. But like let's just drop everything and just focus entirely on in game now. Like let's take what we've been doing with in game and like now we're gonna put the whole company on it. We're gonna stop completely working on all of the campaign stuff that we're doing, and we're just gonna focus entirely on in game and make that as big as we possibly can. Because yeah, the players will get a lot more out of that. And like honestly, like a 3-act campaign for a new player, it's already a huge game. Like sure, we're making a game that's 50 hours long, but having a 25-hour long game is also still a big campaign, right? Like, and
it is.
yeah. And the other thing as well about this is that if we have a bad end game when we get to early access, then we kind of have to say to people, hey, trust us, guys. There's a good end game coming. You guys don't really. I mean, we'll tell you kind of what it is, but like, you guys have to just sort of trust us what it is, right? But if we have a great end game and then the campaign's 3 acts short, well, it's like you know exactly what another 3 acts is going to be like because you just played the first 3, right? So it's like you know exactly what to expect when we add that later. But we get to impress you with an end game before that point. So yeah, that really was what it came down to. But yeah, it was not really that long ago when we came to do that. And I think that was a really important decision because we effectively, and the other fun thing about it, by the way, is that now like making the end game for POE2 is like going back to the like making POE1 leagues again, except with the resources of the whole company all in one thing. So it's like making 7 leagues concurrently, which is kind of a crazy thing, but it's been very fun.
So if I understand this correctly, they launched Settlers of Kalgor the same day who does their Spiritborn reveal announcement, and all this shit gets dumped on social media. Oh, look at these guys making more content than these guys, and Jonathan and team have an epiphany and say, what the F? Why are we breaking our backs with getting all this stuff done and leaving Endgame to, so in essence, getting all 6 acts out for early access and a little bit of Endgame for early access and tell everyone more Endgame's coming. They completely stop after that interaction because everyone was complaining about the Vessel of Hatred, the Spiritborn thing, and it didn't look like there was going to be any more endgame content, right? There was that kind of rhetoric. So they're like, holy shit, are we going to fall into the same trap? So, okay, stop the presses, stop polishing up the rest of the acts. We got to put all our resources on endgame and just do what they ended up doing, 3 acts, normal, cruel, and that's when they delayed. The end of October, they came out with the announcement that we were not going to be going on the 15th or 16th of November anymore, that Path of Exile 2 was delayed 3 weeks. That was the fucking genesis of it? Oh my God, the irony. The effing irony. It's an amazing pivot, and it's 100% on point with the pulse of their customer base. That said, how did they develop all that endgame in the amount of time, LOL? Even with reused assets, it's wild. Well, you just heard him say it's much easier to do leagues than it is to create, characters and stuff like that. So they're still ironing out all the classes too, right? There's 12 of them. So they hunkered down. They made that, they did an audible, using a football term. They called an audible and they said, that's it, stop. Everybody end game. We got the 3 acts. We're good. Let's just put a second difficulty and let's pump out as much end game as we can. And that was a decision of a lifetime right there. Kudos to them. But I'm more focusing on the fact that in a very ironic way, once again, Blizzard's non-actions of developing a game influenced the. So watching them flip and flop actually made Grinding Gear Games think, shit, we don't want to look like that. You know what I mean? Or did I read that wrong? And then Blizzard accuses them of copying them. They don't copy. They show them what not to do.
It's been a lot of fun to work on that stuff, and
wow,
it's
crazy,
cool.
crazy.
So, yeah, it's funny because in retrospect, it's like obviously this is the right move, right? Like obviously this is better.
Yeah.
But it did take a
Big
little while.
time
It took
better.
that moment of like, well, you know, what the hell are we doing here? To actually realize that we had to change direction like that.
Yeah, because
Wow.
I mean, like from my perspective, when I'm looking at it, it's like, well, you know, story content. It's not like it's not worthwhile, or the work that your folks have been doing on it isn't worthwhile. There's a lot of value in it, but the vast majority of that value will be extracted within the first couple months of the game releasing, and then done. Whereas like Endgame is the reason why people keep coming back to the game over and over and over
But also
again.
a lot of the value that we get from making that stuff is that we then get to use it to remix it to make it an in-game. And so like the in-game maps that we were showing, like all of them look like unique areas, but all of them are just like done by just like we've got so many assets through the campaign of the game that we can take and then turn into maps. Like when people are making new maps, it really only takes a few days to turn around a new one because like in-game maps I'm talking about because in terms of the environment, I mean, because they just take a bunch of existing stuff and they're putting it back together. And it's like you'd be surprised how different you can make areas feel than campaign areas by changing remixing a few like different tile sets together, doing
Really?
some, like changing the color of things, changing the
Interesting.
lighting settings and all that sort of stuff. And suddenly you've got an area that just doesn't feel like anything else you've done. And then you make a few specific bespoke tiles to kind of make to add like a specific theme to the area, and then you've got a new map. And it's like we can do that
Days.
stuff so quickly, and it really makes the in-game feel gigantic. There's just all sorts of shit in there that there's so many maps and like interesting things to find, and the last benefit is that for a lot of developers, when you're making content quickly, you just feel so much more productive, and it's so much more fun to actually get stuff working. Like it's the slow grind that kind of wears on you over the years, but the whole just like, oh man, we're just like making maps left and right. We're like turning out all these systems. Like it just feels great to do. So
Yeah, I would imagine, especially because like I mean, you got to think. I mean, you already do think, but with you guys been working on Path of Exile 1 for so long, it's like going back to the regular grind when you're just going to make the end game content.
What a
right?
great
It's like, oh, we were
interview,
already doing
man.
this.
Great
So that's cool.
interview.
That's cool, man. I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. I think that it's going to be a very special game. You
Yeah,
guys
it's
have
going to
put
be a
lot of love in,
banger.
a lot of care, and it even as an early build that I've gotten my hands on, it feels transformative in ways that I haven't been able to express properly in words yet, but believe me, I will.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's great to hear.
Is there anything that you would like to say about Path of Exile 2, or anything you'd like to say to the audience for the end of this? Give it a second.
So obviously it's a scary going into a launch, right? Because you don't know how people are going to react. But like I think that I'm really happy with the work the team have done on the game. Like it's just so I think it's a good game. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how people react to it. Like I just want to see were we crazy this whole time what we were making, or did we actually do we have the right idea? Like all the changes we've made, all the things we've done. Like I just want to see does it actually, are players actually going to love it? And I'm hoping they do.
Yeah, I think they will. Well, man, thank you for joining me today. I can't.
That's awesome. What an interview. 2 great interviews tonight. Tonight was action-packed, man. Action-packed. So for those of you that are still here and you don't have a key to Path of Exile 2 Early Access, I'm doing a giveaway. I just launched it today on X. Just head over to X, Sammy Caps, and all you have to do is follow, like, and retweet. And get yourself an opportunity to win a key. We're going to be doing giveaways also on stream, but right now this is the one I'm running, and I'm probably gonna pull the winners probably by Saturday or Sunday. And yeah, so good luck. Get over there. Sammy Caps is the thing on X, and good luck. And holy shit! And we watched this earlier. Like, what? Two amazing interviews. Really good. Really good. I can't say enough. Like, the more interviews I watch of this studio, the more impressed I am. Anyway, all right. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. And like I said, we are going to, so if you're keen on getting a key, make sure you're coming back. There's no purchase required. We're going to be doing draws on stream. I'm just waiting for a response from GGG regarding something, and then I'm going to start pulling the trigger and giving out these keys to early access, which is 9 days away. Can you believe it? 9 days away. It can't come fast enough. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for too many to mention. Thanks for all the subs, guys. Thank you for all the follows. Hog, love you, brother. And for all the raiders from Hog's channel that are still here, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, guys, thank you for hanging out. And what else did I want to say? Oh, go check out my content on YouTube. I would appreciate it. And yeah, get over on X. Go follow all my socials. Sammy Caps, everywhere. All right, everybody. Have a good one.
Crits have no specific interaction with ailments. They are more likely to inflict shock because they deal more damage, but that's it. Okay, yeah. Like the crit itself doesn't really increase the chance to apply an ailment, but the result of you critting is usually the result of you dealing more damage. So that's why you have a higher chance to inflict an ailment. But it doesn't have anything directly with the crit, just an indirect consequence. The same with no POE, I don't know. Yeah, 500 damage non-crit, or 500 damage crit is the same. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Jonathan's good advice to the industry.